Tonight, a man meets a billionaire. But it's not money or power that makes this fateful moment. It's a scrawny cat, scars from the past, and a bold decision amidst a whispering, judgmental crowd. As both prepare to leave, one fearing loss, the other accustomed to rejection, something unexpected happens. A choice that changes everything. Follow the story to the end. Like and comment the city you're watching to let me know how far this story has come. The restaurant was the kind of place Ethan Cole would never have chosen for himself. Too quiet. Too careful. The kind of establishment where silverware didn't clink and conversations happened in low murmurs, as if anything louder might shatter the expensive atmosphere. He sat alone at a table near the window, his reflection barely visible in the darkening glass, and wondered, not for the first time that evening, what the hell he was doing here. His daughter's voice echoed in his head. "Dad, you can't just... stop. You can't keep hiding." Emma was 8 years old, and already she saw through him with a clarity that made his chest hurt. She'd found the dating app on his phone 2 weeks ago. He'd downloaded it in a moment of weakness and never opened it. And she'd looked at him with those wide, serious eyes that were so much like her mother's. "You deserve to be happy again," she'd said. Ethan had wanted to tell her that happiness wasn't something you deserved. It wasn't a reward for good behavior or survival. It was something that happened to you if you were lucky, and then it could be taken away just as easily. He knew that better than most. But Emma had already been through enough. She didn't need to hear her father's cynicism wrapped up as wisdom. So here he was, wearing a button-down shirt he'd ironed twice because his hands wouldn't stop shaking, waiting for a woman he'd exchanged maybe 15 messages with, a woman whose profile picture showed her at some charity gala, elegant and composed, the kind of person who probably had her life meticulously organized into color-coded folders. He checked his phone. 7:03 p.m. She was 3 minutes late. Maybe she wouldn't show. Maybe this whole thing would end before it began, and he could go home and tell Emma he'd tried, and that would be enough for a while. He could go back to the routine: work, dinner, bedtime stories, repeat. Safe, predictable, numb. The door opened. Ethan looked up, and for a moment he forgot how to breathe. Victoria Hale didn't walk into the restaurant so much as she commanded it. Tall, poised, wearing a simple black dress that probably cost more than his monthly mortgage, she moved with the kind of confidence that made people turn and stare. Her dark hair was pulled back, her expression unreadable, and in her arms, Ethan blinked. In her arms was a cat carrier. She spotted him almost immediately, and something flickered across her face. Not relief exactly, more like resignation. She crossed the room, and Ethan stood awkwardly, knocking his knee against the table leg hard enough to make the water glasses tremble. "Ethan?" Her voice was softer than he'd expected, controlled, but with an edge of uncertainty underneath. "Yeah, hi. You're... Victoria?" "I am." She glanced down at the carrier in her hands, then back at him. "I need to tell you something before we start." Oh, here it was. The moment where she explained why this wasn't going to work. Maybe she'd just realized he looked older in person. Maybe she'd changed her mind in the parking lot. Maybe... "I brought Luna," she said quietly. "My cat. She's recovering from surgery, and I can't leave her alone for more than an hour. I know this is unusual. If you'd rather not..." "You brought your cat to a date?" Victoria's jaw tightened. "I understand if that's a deal breaker." Ethan stared at her, at the way her shoulders had gone rigid, defensive, at the carrier where he could just make out a pair of green eyes peering through the metal grating, at the careful blankness on Victoria's face, like she'd already written off the evening and was just going through the motions of letting him reject her properly. He thought about Emma, about the way she'd looked at him when she said, "You can't keep hiding, Dad." "Can I see her?" he asked. Victoria blinked. "What?" "The cat. Luna. Can I see her?" For a long moment, Victoria just looked at him. Then slowly, she set the carrier down on the chair beside her and unlatched the front panel. A small, gray tabby emerged, moving stiffly, a shaved patch visible on her hind leg where stitches ran in a neat line. She was thin, too thin, and one of her ears had a chunk missing from the tip. "She's a rescue," Victoria said, her voice quieter now. "I found her 3 months ago in a parking garage downtown. She'd been hurt, badly. The vet said most people wouldn't have bothered with the surgery, too expensive for a stray, but She stopped herself, shaking her head. I'm sorry. You don't need to hear all this. No, Ethan said. I do. Victoria looked up at him, and for the first time since she'd walked in, her expression cracked. Just a little. Just enough for him to see the exhaustion underneath. Most men leave when I tell them about the animals, she said. They think I'm eccentric or crazy, or they smile and nod and then never call again. Ethan sat down. I'm not most men. No? There was a challenge in her voice now, sharp and brittle. What makes you different? I'm a widower with an 8-year-old daughter who talks me into doing things I'm terrified of, Ethan said. Like showing up to restaurants to meet strangers. I work in insurance claims processing. I drive a 10-year-old sedan. And right now, I'm more nervous than I've been in 3 years because I forgot how to do this, any of this. But I'm here because my daughter reminded me that hiding doesn't count as living. The words came out rougher than he'd intended, more honest. He watched Victoria's face, waiting for her to make an excuse and leave, but she didn't move. Instead, she reached into the carrier and lifted Luna out, cradling the cat against her chest. I have 17 animals at my house, she said. Dogs, cats, a parrot with anxiety, 2 rabbits. Every single one of them came to me broken. The world didn't want them. Too sick, too old, too damaged. So I took them. Why? Because no one else would. She looked down at Luna, who had started purring, a thin, rattling sound. And because I know what it's like to be looked at like you're too complicated to bother with. Ethan felt something shift in his chest. You're a billionaire. I am. You could do anything, go anywhere, date anyone. I could, Victoria agreed. But people don't see me, Ethan. They see the money, the company, the magazine covers. They see someone who's supposed to have it all figured out. And when they realize I don't, when they see that I'm just as messy and uncertain as anyone else, they leave. It's easier that way. Less disappointing. The waiter approached, hesitated when he saw the cat, then backed away without a word. Ethan watched him go, then looked back at Victoria. How many dates have you been on this year? 12? How many made it past the first hour? Victoria's mouth twitched, almost a smile. You'd be the first. Good, Ethan said. Then we're both winging it. For a moment, they just looked at each other. Then Luna shifted in Victoria's arms, letting out a soft, creaky meow. She's judging us, Ethan said. She judges everyone. Victoria stroked the cat's head gently. She has trust issues. Can't imagine why. Victoria actually smiled at that. Small, but real. You're handling this better than I expected. What were you expecting? Polite disinterest? Maybe some comment about allergies? A quick exit? Yeah, well, Ethan shrugged. My life stopped making sense 3 years ago. A cat at a restaurant barely registers anymore. The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Victoria's eyes softened. Your wife, she said quietly. It wasn't a question. Car accident, Ethan said. Drunk driver ran a red light. She was gone before the ambulance arrived. I'm sorry. Everyone's sorry. He didn't mean for it to sound bitter, but it did. He tried again. I mean, thank you. It's just... After a while, the condolences start to feel like white noise. People don't know what else to say, so they say, they're sorry, and then they move on, and you're left trying to figure out how to do the same. Victoria set Luna down gently on the table. The cat wobbled slightly, then sat, wrapping her tail around her paws. Have you? Moved on? I don't know, Ethan admitted. Some days I think I'm doing okay. Emma's thriving at school. I make it to work on time. We have dinner together every night. But then I'll see something. A song on the radio, a couple holding hands in the grocery store, and it all comes back. Like I'm right there in the hospital again, watching them pull the sheet over her face. He stopped, horrified at himself. Christ, I'm sorry. This is not first date conversation. Why not? Victoria asked. Would you rather we talk about the weather, our favorite movies, pretend we're not both carrying something? Ethan looked at her, really looked. At the way she held herself so carefully, like she was used to being watched. At the defensive set of her shoulders, the guardedness in her eyes. At Luna, sitting between them like a tiny broken bridge. "What are you carrying?" he asked. Victoria was quiet for a long moment. Around them, the restaurant hummed with muted conversations and the soft clink of expensive dishes. Someone laughed, bright and careless, at a table across the room. "Expectations," Victoria said finally. "My father built Hale Industries from nothing. When he died, I was 25, and suddenly I was in charge of a multi-billion-dollar company. Everyone expected me to fail. Some people wanted me to fail, but I didn't. I worked 80-hour weeks. I made the hard calls. I turned the company into something even bigger than what he'd left behind." "That sounds like success." "It is. On paper." She traced her finger along the edge of the table. "But somewhere along the way, I stopped being Victoria and became Victoria Hale, CEO. Every relationship I've had since then has been with that person. The image, the power. No one wants to know the woman who comes home to a house full of rescue animals and spends her weekends reading in silence because she's too tired to be on anymore." "Is that what you do? Read in silence?" "Every Sunday," Victoria said. "I make tea, I sit in my garden, and I read. Usually mystery novels, nothing literary or impressive, just stories." Ethan smiled. "Emma and I watch nature documentaries on Sunday mornings. She does a running commentary on the animals. Last week, she spent 20 minutes explaining why penguins are architecturally inefficient." "She sounds brilliant." "She is. She's—" Ethan's throat tightened. "She's the only reason I'm still here. After Sarah died, there were days I didn't want to get out of bed. Days where it felt like the weight would crush me. But Emma needed breakfast. She needed someone to walk her to school. She needed her dad, so I kept going." "That's love," Victoria said softly. "It's survival. Maybe it's both." Luna suddenly stood, stretched, and stepped carefully off the table and onto Ethan's lap. He froze, hands hovering uncertainly. "She's never done that before," Victoria said, her voice strange. Should I just let her settle?" Ethan lowered his hands slowly. Luna circled twice, then curled into a tight ball against his stomach, her purr vibrating through the fabric of his shirt. She felt impossibly fragile, all bones and scars and cautious trust. "She doesn't like people," Victoria said. She sounded almost shaken. "She barely tolerates me, and I'm the one who feeds her. Maybe she knows I'm not a threat. Or maybe she knows you understand what it's like to be broken." The words settled between them, too honest to take back. Ethan looked down at the cat in his lap, then up at Victoria. "I'm not good at this," he said. "Dating, talking, being open. I've spent 3 years keeping everything locked down because it was easier than feeling it." "I'm not good at it either," Victoria said. "I'm used to negotiations and board meetings, situations where there's a clear goal and a strategy to reach it. This," she gestured between them, "this doesn't have a strategy." "No," Ethan agreed. "It doesn't." They looked at each other across the table, across the impossible distance of their different worlds, and something unspoken passed between them. An understanding, a recognition. "People are staring," Victoria said quietly. Ethan glanced around. She was right. Half the restaurant was watching them now, some with curiosity, others with thinly veiled judgment. He could see the whispers forming. "Who brings a cat to Marchand's? Is that Victoria Hale? What is she doing with him?" "They always stare," Victoria said. Her voice had gone flat. "Everywhere I go. Everything I do. It's part of the package." "Does it bother you?" "It used to. Now I barely notice." But her hands were gripping the edge of the table, knuckles white. Ethan made a decision. The kind of decision he hadn't allowed himself to make in years. The kind that required stepping into uncertainty without a safety net. "Do you want to get out of here?" he asked. Victoria blinked. "What?" "There's a park 2 blocks down. It'll be empty this time of night. No one watching, no one judging, just space to breathe." He paused. "We can bring Luna." For a moment, Victoria didn't move. Then slowly she nodded. "Okay." They stood together, and Ethan carefully transferred Luna back into Victoria's arms. The cat protested with a small, grumpy meow, but didn't struggle. Victoria placed her gently back in the carrier while Ethan left cash on the table. Too much, probably, but he didn't care. As they walked toward the exit, Ethan felt the weight of every stare, every whispered comment. He heard fragments. Brought a cat. That's Victoria Hale. What is she doing with... Victoria's stride didn't falter, but her jaw was tight, her shoulders rigid. Ethan moved closer, not quite touching, but near enough that she'd know she wasn't walking out alone. The night air hit them like relief. Cool and clean, carrying the faint scent of rain. Victoria stopped on the sidewalk, breathing deeply. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For not pretending you didn't hear them." Ethan looked at her. "Do people usually pretend?" "Always. They act like the staring doesn't happen, like my life is normal. It's meant to be polite, I think, but it just makes me feel more alone." "Well," Ethan said, "I'm not polite enough to pretend." Victoria laughed, actual surprised laughter that made her whole face change. "No, I don't think you are." They walked side by side down the quiet street, Luna's carrier swinging gently between them. The park appeared ahead, a small green space tucked between buildings, lit by old-fashioned lampposts that cast pools of warm light. There was a bench near a fountain, empty and waiting. They sat, and Victoria opened the carrier again. Luna emerged, sniffed the air cautiously, then stepped onto the bench between them. "Tell me about Emma," Victoria said. So Ethan did. He told her about his daughter's obsession with documentaries, her collection of nature facts, the way she'd started leaving notes around the house after Sarah died. Little reminders like, "Don't forget to eat lunch, Dad," and "You're doing good." He told her about the school play where Emma had been a tree and taken it so seriously she'd refused to move for the entire performance. About the time she'd tried to rescue a spider from the bathroom and ended up releasing it in Ethan's bedroom instead. Victoria listened, really listened, and when he finished, she was smiling. "She sounds wonderful." "She is. She's better than I deserve." "Don't do that." "Do what?" "Diminish yourself." Victoria's voice was firm. "You're raising a brilliant, compassionate child on your own while grieving a loss most people can't even imagine. That's not nothing, Ethan." He didn't know what to say to that, so he said nothing. Luna stood, stretched, and then, deliberately, impossibly, stepped off the bench and onto Ethan's lap again. This time, she kneaded his leg twice with her paws before settling. "I don't understand," Victoria said. She sounded genuinely baffled. "She doesn't do this. She doesn't trust people." "Maybe she's tired of not trusting," Ethan said quietly. Luna's purr filled the silence between them, steady and certain. Victoria reached out slowly, her hand hovering near the cat's head. Luna allowed the touch, leaning into Victoria's palm. "I'm terrified," Victoria said suddenly. "Of what?" "This. You. The possibility that this could be something real." She looked at him, and her eyes were bright. "I don't know how to do this without armor, Ethan. I've spent so long protecting myself that I don't know how to just be." "Yeah," Ethan said. "I know that feeling." "So what do we do?" He thought about Emma, about the way she'd looked at him with absolute faith when she'd said, "You deserve to be happy again." About Sarah, who would have told him to stop being an idiot and take the chance. "We try," he said. "We try. And we're honest when it's hard. And we don't run when it gets scary." "What if I hurt you? What if I hurt you?" Victoria smiled sadly. "Then we'll both be broken, I suppose." "We're already broken," Ethan said. "Maybe that's not a bad place to start." They sat together on that bench, the city moving around them, and let the possibilities settle. No promises, no guarantees. Just two people choosing, for one night, not to walk away. Luna purred on, tiny and fierce, a testament to survival against impossible odds. "I'm supposed to be at a board meeting tomorrow morning," Victoria said eventually. 7 a.m. It'll be brutal. I've got an early shift too. Emma has a field trip to the aquarium. I'm one of the parent chaperones." "That sounds nice." "It'll be chaos, 33rd graders and no enough adults." "Still sounds nice." They lapsed into comfortable silence. Around them, the park was mostly empty, just a couple walking a dog in the distance, a jogger passing under the lampposts. No one watching, no one judging. "Can I ask you something?" Ethan said. "Of course." "Why did you agree to meet me? You could date anyone. Why respond to some random guy on an app?" Victoria considered this. "Your profile didn't mention my money once. Most people lead with that. subtle questions about the company, comments about my success, fishing for details. But you asked about my favorite book. And when I said mysteries, you asked which ones. Like you actually cared about the answer. I did care. I know, that's why I said yes. She paused. Why did you message me? Ethan thought back to that night 2 weeks ago, sitting in his living room after Emma had gone to bed, staring at Victoria's profile picture. You look sad, he said finally. In all your photos, you looked perfect, composed, successful. But your eyes looked sad. And I thought, maybe she understands. Understands what? What it's like to smile when you don't feel like smiling. To keep going when everything in you wants to stop. Victoria's breath caught. Yes, she whispered. I understand that very well. Luna shifted, resettling herself more comfortably across Ethan's lap. Her stitches caught the lamplight, a visible reminder of trauma and healing happening simultaneously. What happened to her? Ethan asked. Luna, you said she was hurt. Victoria's expression darkened. Someone threw her out of a moving car. A witness saw it happen, saw the car slow down just enough to toss her onto the roadway, then speed off. She had a broken leg, internal bleeding, severe dehydration. The shelter was going to euthanize her. Too many medical costs, not enough resources. But her voice cracked. I couldn't let that happen. I couldn't let her die because someone decided she wasn't worth saving. So you saved her. I tried. I'm still trying. The vet says she'll never be fully healthy. There's permanent damage. But she's alive. She's here. That has to count for something. It counts for everything, Ethan said. They sat with that truth between them. In the distance, the fountain burbled softly, a constant, soothing sound. A breeze picked up, carrying the scent of night-blooming jasmine from someone's garden. I should tell you something, Ethan said. About tonight. About why I almost didn't come. Victoria waited. Emma found a photo this morning of Sarah and me at our wedding. She was looking through old albums. She does that sometimes when she misses her mom, and she asked me if I thought Mom would be happy that I was going on a date. His throat tightened. I didn't know what to say. Part of me felt like I was betraying Sarah's memory just by being here, like moving forward meant leaving her behind. What did you tell Emma? I told her I didn't know, and then she said, he stopped, pressing his palm against his eyes. She said, Mom would want you to be happy, Dad. She'd want both of us to be happy. That's what love means. Victoria's hand found his, gentle and certain. She's right. She's 8. Children see things clearly sometimes, before we learn to complicate everything with fear and doubt. Ethan looked down at their joined hands. Victoria's fingers were cool, her grip steady. I'm still scared, he admitted. So am I. What if this doesn't work? What if it does? The question hung in the air, fragile and huge. Ethan thought about all the ways this could go wrong. The distance between their worlds, the complications, the risk of opening himself up to loss again. But he also thought about Emma's voice, about the way Luna had chosen to trust him, about Victoria sitting beside him with her own armor temporarily lowered. I don't have a plan, he said. Neither do I. I don't know how to date a billionaire, Victoria smiled. I don't know how to date a single father who processes insurance claims. I think we're even. My life is small, Ethan continued. School pickups and grocery shopping and bedtime stories. That's it. That's all I have to offer. That sounds perfect, Victoria said quietly. Do you know what I did last Tuesday? I sat through a 6-hour merger negotiation, gave 2 interviews about market trends, attended a charity gala where I smiled until my face hurt, and came home to an empty house at midnight. I ate cold leftovers, standing at my kitchen counter, while Luna watched me from across the room because she was still too scared to come close, and I thought, this is it. This is success. This is everything I worked for. She paused. It felt like drowning. Ethan squeezed her hand. What would you rather have done? Anything. Something small and real and human. Dinner with someone who actually sees me. A conversation that doesn't have an agenda. A moment where I'm not performing. She looked at him. This. I would have rather had this. Luna chose that moment to climb from Ethan's lap onto Victoria's, then back to Ethan's, as if she couldn't decide where she felt safest. Finally, she settled half on each of their legs, spanning the space between them. I think she's making a point, Ethan said. What point? That it's possible to trust two people at once. Victoria laughed softly. When did you become wise? I'm not wise. I'm tired of being afraid, tired of half living. Me too. They stayed like that, connected by a small, broken cat and the fragile thread of possibility. Around them, the park slowly emptied. The couple with the dog headed home. The jogger completed their circuit and disappeared. The city sounds grew more distant, muffled. Tell me something true, Victoria said suddenly. What? Something true. Something you wouldn't normally say on a first date. Ethan thought about it. I still sleep on my side of the bed. Sarah's side, I can't bring myself to use it. I know it's been 3 years. I know it's just empty space. But crossing that invisible line feels like admitting she's really gone. Victoria absorbed this. I have panic attacks, she said. Usually on Sunday nights, right before the work week starts. They hit me out of nowhere. My chest gets tight, I can't breathe, and for 20 minutes I'm completely convinced I'm going to die. I've never told anyone that. Not my assistant, not my therapist, not anyone. What do you do when they happen? I sit on my bathroom floor and count tiles until it passes. There are 147 tiles in my master bathroom. I've counted them so many times I see them when I close my eyes. Next time it happens, Ethan said carefully, you could call me. Victoria's eyes widened. At midnight on a Sunday? Anytime. I'm usually awake anyway. Insomnia has been my companion for 3 years now. You'd answer? Yes. Something shifted in Victoria's expression. The guardedness receded further, and what remained was raw and real and scared. Why? Because counting tiles alone is the loneliest thing I've ever heard, Ethan said, and because you shouldn't have to do this by yourself, any of it. Victoria looked away, blinking rapidly. I barely know you. Yeah, but maybe that's okay. Maybe we can learn. Luna purred louder as if in agreement. Her small, warm weight anchored them both. I should probably get her home, Victoria said eventually. The vet said she needs rest and quiet. Right, of course. But neither of them moved. The moment stretched, fragile and precious, neither wanting to be the first to break it. I'd like to see you again, Victoria said. If you want that. I do, Ethan said immediately. I really do. Emma, too. I'd like to meet her, if that's okay, if it's not too soon. Ethan thought about his daughter, about her fierce insistence that he deserved happiness. She'd love that. She's been asking about you since I told her about tonight. What did you tell her? That I was nervous, that you seemed interesting, that I had no idea what I was doing. Victoria smiled. Honest, I like that. They stood finally, slowly, as if the spell might break if they moved too quickly. Victoria gathered Luna back into the carrier and the cat went willingly, curling into the familiar space. I'll walk you to your car, Ethan offered. You don't have to. I want to. They walked back through the quiet streets, past the restaurant where they'd started, past darkened storefronts and the occasional late-night wanderer. Victoria's car was parked in a small lot, a sleek black sedan with diplomatic plates. Of course you have diplomatic plates, Ethan said. Board member at the UN Foundation, Victoria explained. It's mostly ceremonial, but it comes with perks. My car has a duct-taped bumper and a check engine light that's been on for 6 months. I bet it runs, though. Most days. They stood beside her car, the moment of goodbye arriving too soon. Victoria set the carrier gently on the passenger seat, then turned back to Ethan. Thank you, she said. For staying, for listening, for not treating me like I'm crazy. You're not crazy. You're just human. In my world, those are often the same thing. Ethan reached out, hesitated, then gently touched her arm. Your world sounds exhausting. It is. Maybe you need to spend more time outside of it. Victoria looked at him, and in her eyes he saw hope and fear in equal measure. Maybe I do. They stood there, close but not quite touching, both aware that crossing this final distance would mean something, would be a choice. Victoria moved first. She leaned in and kissed his cheek, brief and soft and certain. Text me when you get home, she asked. Yeah, you too. Good night, Ethan. Good night, Victoria. She got into her car and he watched her drive away, taillights disappearing into the city's glow. Only then did he realize his hands had stopped shaking. Only then did he notice the knot in his chest had loosened just a little. His phone buzzed before he'd even reached his own car. Victoria, I'm already home. Luna is settled. Thank you for tonight, for all of it. Ethan smiled and typed back, thank you for staying, for being honest, for bringing Luna. Victoria, most people wouldn't have understood. Ethan, I'm not most people, remember? Victoria, I'm starting to see that. Ethan, same time next week? There was a pause. Then, yes, but maybe somewhere quieter, where we can actually talk without an audience. Ethan, I know a place. Terrible coffee, great pie, absolutely no one who would recognize you. Victoria, perfect. Ethan drove home through empty streets, and for the first time in 3 years, the silence in his car didn't feel suffocating. It felt like possibility. Emma was still awake when he got home, allegedly reading in bed, but clearly waiting up. She dropped her book the moment he appeared in her doorway. How was it? She demanded. It was... Ethan paused, trying to find the right word. It was good. Really good. Did she like you? I think so. I think we liked each other. Are you going to see her again? Yeah, next week. Emma grinned, triumphant. I told you it would be okay. You did. Ethan sat on the edge of her bed. She wants to meet you, actually, if that's okay. His daughter's eyes went wide. Really? Really? She has a cat named Luna who's recovering from surgery. I thought maybe you'd like to hear about her. A rescue cat? 17 rescue animals, actually. Dad! Emma sat up straight, completely serious. You have to marry her. Ethan laughed, surprised by the sound. It's been one date, Em. But she rescues animals and she wants to meet me and she made you laugh. I heard you laugh. You never laugh anymore. The observation hit him harder than it should have. I laugh sometimes. Not like that. Not real. Ethan pulled his daughter into a hug, holding her tight against the ache in his chest. I'm trying, sweetheart. I'm really trying. I know, Dad, and I'm proud of you. He kissed the top of her head, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo. Get some sleep, okay? We've got the aquarium tomorrow. Will you tell me about Victoria? About the date? In the morning, over breakfast. Promise? Promise. Emma settled back into her pillows, but before Ethan could leave, she spoke again. Dad, do you think Mom would like her? Victoria? Ethan paused in the doorway. Yeah, Em, I think she would. Me too. He turned off her light and closed the door gently. In his own room, he sat on his side of the bed, just his side like always, and pulled out his phone. Victoria had sent another message. Thank you for tonight. I haven't felt this hopeful in a very long time. Ethan typed, Me neither. Sleep well, Victoria. Victoria, you too, Ethan. And Ethan, I'm glad Emma talked you into this. Ethan, me too. He set his phone on the nightstand and lay back, staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow, there would be doubt again. Fear. The weight of everything that could go wrong. But tonight he'd sat in a park with a woman who understood loneliness, held a cat who'd chosen to trust despite every reason not to, and felt something he'd thought was gone forever. Hope. Small, fragile, terrifying, but real. And that, Ethan thought as sleep finally pulled him under, was enough to build on. Outside his window, the city hummed on into the night, full of possibility and second chances and the quiet courage it took to try again. The aquarium trip was chaos, exactly as predicted. 30 third graders hopped up on juice boxes and excitement, racing between exhibits while harried teachers tried to maintain some semblance of order. Ethan found himself stationed at the touch pool, supervising 6 kids who were convinced the starfish needed to be relocated to different rocks for better feng shui, whatever that meant. Mr. Cole, can starfish feel sad? A girl named Maya asked, her hand hovering over a purple sea star. I don't think so, sweetie. But how do you know? Maybe they're all sad and we just can't tell. Ethan glanced at his phone for the 3rd time in 10 minutes. No new messages. Victoria had texted that morning, a simple, "Good luck with the aquarium. I hope the penguins behave, but nothing since." He told himself it didn't mean anything. She was busy. Board meetings and conference calls and the thousand other things that filled a billionaire's Friday. "Mr. Cole?" Maya was still waiting for an answer. "I think if starfish could be sad, they'd probably be sad about being touched by sticky fingers all day," Ethan said. "So maybe give that one a break." Maya nodded solemnly and moved to harass a hermit crab instead. Emma appeared at his elbow, breathless and glowing. "Dad, did you see the jellyfish? They're bioluminescent. That means they make their own light. Isn't that amazing?" "Very amazing. Like living nightlights." She bounced on her toes. "Can we get jellyfish?" "Absolutely not. But they're educational. They're also impossible to keep alive and probably illegal." Emma sighed dramatically. "You never let me have anything cool." "You have 17 stuffed animals and a rock collection that's taken over the garage." "That's different. Those don't glow." Before Ethan could respond, his phone buzzed. He pulled it out too quickly, nearly dropping it into the touch pool. Victoria's name lit up the screen. "Victoria, crisis. My assistant just informed me that I'm expected at a fundraiser tomorrow night. Black tie, insufferable small talk, the usual nightmare. Any chance you'd be willing to suffer through it with me? I know it's last minute and completely unfair to ask, but I could really use a friendly face." Ethan stared at the message. A black tie fundraiser, with billionaires and power players and people who would take one look at him and know he didn't belong. His thumb hovered over the keyboard. "Dad?" Emma was watching him. "Is that her? Victoria?" "Yeah." "What'd she say?" Ethan hesitated, then showed her the message. Emma read it carefully, her brow furrowed in concentration. "You should go," she said finally. "Em, it's a fancy party. I don't even own a tux." "So rent one. Duh." "It's not that simple." "Why not?" "Because I'll be out of my depth. Because everyone there will see through me in 5 seconds. Because I'm terrified of screwing this up before it even starts. Because I don't know if I'm ready for that world." Emma looked at him with those two old eyes. "She invited you to her world, Dad. Maybe she wants you there. Or maybe she just needs a buffer between her and the insufferable small talk. Or maybe," Emma said, "she likes you and wants to spend time with you, and you're being scared again." Ethan opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. His 8-year-old daughter had just called him out, and she wasn't wrong. "When did you get so smart?" he asked. "I've always been smart. You just don't listen." He typed out a response before he could overthink it. "What time should I pick you up?" Victoria's reply came seconds later. "You don't have to pick me up. I can send a car." Ethan, "I'm picking you up. Text me your address." Victoria, "You're sure?" Ethan, "I'm sure. Fair warning, though. My car makes concerning noises." Victoria, "I like concerning noises. Keeps things interesting." Ethan smiled despite himself. Emma caught it and grinned. "You're going?" "I'm going." "Good. Now stop checking your phone and come see the octopus. It's hiding and everyone's trying to find it." The rest of the day passed in a blur of marine life and oversugared children. By the time Ethan got Emma home, fed, and settled with her homework, exhaustion had settled into his bones. He collapsed on the couch and pulled up rental tux websites on his laptop, trying not to think about how much this was going to cost. His phone rang. Victoria's name. "Hello?" "Hi." Her voice sounded tired. "Sorry to call instead of texting. I've been staring at screens all day and needed to hear an actual human voice." "Rough day?" "You could say that. Spent 4 hours in budget meetings, then another 2 doing damage control because our CFO made some ill-advised comments to the press about our expansion plans." "How was the aquarium?" "Chaotic. One kid tried to climb into the shark tank. Another one cried because the sea turtles weren't racing each other. Emma wants bioluminescent jellyfish." Victoria laughed, and some of the tension eased from Ethan's shoulders. "Did you tell her no?" "I did. She's devastated." "Poor thing. Maybe I can make it up to her." "You don't have to." "I want to," Victoria said. "Actually, I was thinking, if tomorrow night goes well, maybe the 3 of us could do something the next day. Something fun and low-key." Emma's choice. Ethan's throat tightened. You really want to meet her? Of course I do. She's important to you, which means she's important to me. A pause. Is that too much? Am I moving too fast? No, it's good. She's excited to meet you too. Yeah? She told me I have to marry you because you rescue animals. Victoria laughed again, surprised and genuine. Well, that's one way to make a decision. I told her it's been one date. Technically 1.5. Tomorrow night counts. Does it? I thought fundraisers were work. They are. But having you there makes it feel less like work and more like, I don't know, something bearable. Ethan heard the vulnerability in her voice, the admission buried underneath. Are you nervous about tomorrow? Terrified, Victoria admitted. These events are performances, everyone watching, everyone judging. I'm used to it, but that doesn't make it easier. And bringing you, people will talk, they'll speculate, they'll make assumptions. About what? About us. About why I'm with you instead of some CEO or diplomat or whoever they think I should be dating. The words stung, even though he knew she didn't mean them that way. If you'd rather go alone. No, her voice was firm. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying people will be awful, and I need you to be prepared for that. They'll smile to your face and whisper behind your back. They'll ask invasive questions disguised as polite conversation. It's going to be uncomfortable. Then why invite me? Because I don't want to be alone. The honesty in her voice cut through everything else. I'm tired of standing in rooms full of people and feeling completely isolated. I thought, maybe with you there, it would be different. Ethan thought about the restaurant, the stairs, the judgment. I can handle uncomfortable. You sure? I once sat through a 3-hour school talent show where Emma's entire class performed an interpretive dance to whale songs. I think I can survive some rich people being passive-aggressive. Victoria's laugh was watery this time, like she might be crying. Thank you for understanding, for not running away. I'm not going anywhere, Ethan said, and meant it. They talked for another hour about nothing and everything. Victoria told him about Luna's follow-up vet appointment, how the cat had hissed at the veterinarian but purred when Victoria held her afterward. Ethan told her about Emma's latest documentary obsession, deep sea creatures, and how she'd spent dinner explaining the horrifying reproductive habits of anglerfish. The male attaches himself to the female and basically dissolves until he's just a parasitic sac of reproductive organs, Ethan said. Emma thought it was the most romantic thing she'd ever heard. Your daughter has an interesting definition of romance. She's 8. Everything is either the most romantic or the most disgusting. There's no middle ground. I like that, Victoria said softly. The certainty. No pretense, no games, just honest reactions. Kids are good at that. It's us adults who complicate everything. Speaking of complications, Victoria said, I should probably tell you what to expect tomorrow. The fundraiser is for the Children's Medical Research Foundation. Very worthy cause, very wealthy donors. Cocktail hour starts at 7, dinner at 8, speeches around 9. We can leave after the speeches if you want. What do you usually do? Stay until the bitter end, smile until my face hurts. Make small talk with people whose names I'll forget by morning. Sounds excruciating. It is, but it raises millions for kids who need it, so I smile and suffer through. Ethan heard the exhaustion underneath her words. What if we make a deal? What kind of deal? You introduce me to people, I'll handle the small talk, give you a break from performing. You don't have to. I know, but I want to. Let me be useful. Victoria was quiet for a moment. You're already useful, Ethan. You make me feel less alone. That's more valuable than you know. His chest ached. Same here. They said goodnight eventually, reluctantly, and Ethan spent the next 20 minutes staring at tuxedo rentals before giving up and calling the only person he knew who might have advice. Marcus picked up on the 3rd ring. This better be good. It's almost 11. I need to rent a tux. Silence. Then, I'm sorry, what? Marcus Chen had been Ethan's best friend since college, the kind of friend who'd shown up at the hospital the night Sarah died and hadn't left for 3 days. He was also aggressively single, perpetually sarcastic, and the last person Ethan had expected to ask for fashion advice. I have a date tomorrow. Black tie fundraiser. I need a tux. Who are you and what have you done with Ethan Cole? Shut up and help me. Hold on. Rustling sounds. Okay, I'm sitting down because I need to process this. You, Ethan. I haven't dated in 3 years, Cole. Are going to a black tie fundraiser. Yes. With a woman. Yes. Who is this woman? Please tell me she's worth renting formal wear for. Ethan hesitated. Victoria Hale. Dead silence. Marcus? The Victoria Hale? Billionaire Victoria Hale? CEO of Hale Industries. Victoria Hale? Yeah. How the hell did you... When did you... What? We met on a dating app. We went out last week. It went well. Marcus let out a low whistle. Man, when you decide to get back out there, you don't mess around. It's not like that. She's just a person, Marcus. A complicated, lonely person who happens to have a lot of money. Uh-huh. And does this complicated, lonely billionaire know that you're completely out of your depth with black tie events? She knows. She doesn't care. Then she's either crazy or actually into you, possibly both. Marcus paused. You really like her, don't you? Yeah, Ethan admitted. I really do. I can't explain it. When I'm with her, I don't feel broken. I just feel like myself. That's good, man. That's really good. Marcus's voice had gone soft. Sarah would be happy for you. The words hit harder than expected. You think so? I know so. She wouldn't want you stuck in neutral forever. And she definitely wouldn't want Emma growing up watching you hide from life. I'm not hiding. You've been hiding for 3 years, brother. But if this Victoria woman is making you rent a tux and brave a room full of rich assholes, then maybe you're finally ready to stop. Ethan rubbed his eyes. I'm terrified I'm going to screw this up. You probably will. Everyone screws up relationships, but that's better than not trying at all. When did you get wise? I've always been wise. You just don't listen. Emma said the same thing earlier. Smart kid. Now go rent a tux. And Ethan? Get one that actually fits. No rental rack garbage. Victoria Hale is worth the extra money. The next day was a blur of errands and anxiety. Ethan picked up the tux. Marcus had texted him the name of a place that promised same-day tailoring, and stood awkwardly while a woman with pins in her mouth marked adjustments and muttered about his shoulders. Emma helped him practice tying a bow tie, which turned into 20 minutes of both of them laughing as Ethan failed repeatedly. You look fancy, Dad, Emma said finally, when the tie was more or less straight. I look uncomfortable. Same thing. By 6:30, Ethan was dressed, nervous, and questioning every decision that had led to this moment. Emma sat on his bed, offering commentary. Too much cologne. I barely put any on. Still too much. Victoria has animals. They have sensitive noses. Ethan wiped off half the cologne. Better? Better. Emma studied him critically. You look good, Dad. Like a movie star or something. I look like an insurance adjuster in a rented tux. That's what I said. Movie star. Ethan checked his phone. Victoria had texted her address an hour ago, along with a message. No pressure, but I'm probably going to be a nervous wreck. Fair warning. He'd responded, same. We can be nervous wrecks together. Now, standing in front of the mirror, Ethan barely recognized himself. The tux fit better than he'd expected, and the woman at the rental place had been right about the shoulders. He looked, not like he belonged at a billionaire's fundraiser, but at least like he wouldn't be immediately thrown out. You're going to be late if you keep staring at yourself, Emma said. Right. Okay. Ethan grabbed his keys, then paused. You're sure you're okay with Mrs. Chen watching you? Dad, I'm 8, not 3. I'll be fine. But if you need anything, I'll call. I know. Now go before I change my mind about you dating. Ethan kissed the top of her head. I love you, troublemaker. Love you too. Tell Victoria I said hi. The drive to Victoria's house took 40 minutes and led him out of the city into hills he'd only seen from a distance. Her address corresponded to a gated community where the security guard actually checked his ID before waving him through. The houses here weren't just big, they were estates, sprawling properties with manicured lawns and gates of their own. Victoria's house sat at the end of a long driveway, a modern structure of glass and steel that somehow looked warm instead of cold. Lights glowed from inside, and Ethan could see movement through the windows, shadows that might have been people or animals. He couldn't tell. He parked his aging sedan next to a fountain, an actual fountain, and wondered if it was too late to turn around. His phone buzzed. "Victoria, I saw you pull up. Come to the front door." Deep breaths. Ethan climbed out of the car, straightened his bow tie one last time, and walked to the entrance. Before he could knock, the door swung open. Victoria stood there, and Ethan forgot how to breathe. She wore a floor-length gown in deep emerald green, simple and elegant, her hair swept up to show her neck. But it wasn't the dress or the styling that stopped him. It was her expression. Nervous, vulnerable, real. "Hi," she said. "Hi yourself. You look—" He couldn't find the words. "Terrified?" Victoria offered. "Because I am. This dress has been sitting in my closet for 6 months, and I've been second-guessing it for the last hour." "You look beautiful," Ethan said. "But also, yeah, terrified. I can see it in your eyes." She laughed, surprised. "Most people just tell me I look nice and move on. I'm not most people." "No," Victoria said softly. "You're really not." She stepped back. "Come in for a minute? I need to grab my bag and make sure Luna's settled." Ethan followed her inside, trying not to gape. The house was stunning. High ceilings, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the hills, art on the walls that probably cost more than his car. But it was also lived in. Dog beds in corners, cat trees by the windows, a chewed-up toy mouse on the hardwood floor. "Luna!" Victoria called. "Come say hello!" The gray tabby appeared from around a corner, moving less stiffly than last week. She saw Ethan and froze. "It's okay, baby," Victoria murmured. "You remember Ethan." To Ethan's shock, Luna approached, sniffed his shoes carefully, then rubbed against his leg. "She remembers you," Victoria said, sounding awed. "She never does that." Ethan crouched down, offering his hand. Luna bumped her head against it, purring. "Hey, little one, you look better." "The stitches come out next week. The vet says she's healing beautifully." Victoria watched them, something soft in her expression. "She trusts you." "The feeling's mutual." A large golden retriever wandered in, tail wagging, followed by a 3-legged beagle and a cat with one eye. They surrounded Ethan like a welcoming committee, sniffing and investigating. "Sorry," Victoria said. "They're curious about new people." "Don't apologize. This is—" Ethan looked around at the menagerie, at Victoria standing in her elegant gown surrounded by rescue animals, at the collision of two worlds that shouldn't fit but somehow did. "This is perfect." Victoria's eyes went bright. "You mean that?" "I do." She blinked rapidly, turning away. "Okay, I need a minute." "Take your time." While Victoria disappeared down a hallway, Ethan sat on the floor and let the animals investigate him properly. The golden retriever, whose tag read Hank, laid his head on Ethan's lap with a contented sigh. The 3-legged beagle, Scout, licked his hand enthusiastically. "You're all very friendly," Ethan told them. "Does Victoria know you're terrible guard dogs?" "They're the worst," Victoria said, returning with a small clutch purse. Her eyes were red-rimmed but clear. "But they're excellent at making people feel welcome." She looked at him sitting on her floor, covered in animals, wearing a $1,000 tux. "You're going to get dog hair all over you." "Worth it." Victoria held out her hand. Ethan took it and stood, and they were suddenly very close, close enough that he could smell her perfume, something light and floral. "Thank you for being here," Victoria said quietly, "for doing this. Thank you for asking me." They stood like that for a moment, caught between wanting to stay and knowing they had to go. Finally, Victoria stepped back. "We should leave. Traffic will be awful." "Right, of course." They took Victoria's car, a sleek town car with a driver who nodded politely when Victoria introduced Ethan. The drive into the city was quiet, both of them lost in their own thoughts. Ethan watched the landscape change from hills to suburbs to urban sprawl, acutely aware of Victoria's hand resting inches from his on the leather seat. "You okay?" he asked finally. "Nervous. These events, I never know who I'm going to be walking into. Whether it'll be people who respect me or people who see me as my father's daughter. Whether they'll ask about my work or just want access to my money." "What do you want them to ask about?" Victoria considered this. "Honestly, I'd rather they not ask anything. I'd rather just be invisible for a night." Fat chance in that dress? She smiled despite herself. You're good for my ego. Just telling the truth. The venue was a historic hotel downtown, the kind with marble columns and crystal chandeliers. A red carpet led to the entrance, photographers stationed on either side. Ethan's stomach dropped. There are photographers? Just local media. They're here for the big donors, not us. But Victoria's hand found his, squeezing tight. Stay close? Not going anywhere. They emerged from the car into a barrage of camera flashes. Victoria's expression smoothed into something polished and professional, but her grip on Ethan's hand never loosened. Someone shouted her name, and she turned, smiling, while Ethan stood awkwardly beside her. Ms. Hale, who's your date? This is Ethan Cole, Victoria said smoothly. A friend. Just a friend? Victoria's smile sharpened. A very good friend. Now, if you'll excuse us. She swept past them, pulling Ethan along, and he found himself in a soaring ballroom filled with people in tuxedos and gowns, holding champagne flutes and speaking in those low, cultured voices that marked old money. Breathe, Victoria murmured. Trying. A woman in diamonds approached, her smile bright and fake. Victoria, darling, you look stunning, as always. Patricia, lovely to see you. Victoria's voice had gone distant, professional. This is Ethan Cole. Ethan, Patricia Vandermeer. She's on the foundation board. Charmed, Patricia said, looking at Ethan like he was a curiosity. And what do you do, Mr. Cole? I process insurance claims. Patricia's smile froze. How practical. Someone has to make sure people get paid when their houses flood, Ethan said evenly. Indeed. Patricia turned back to Victoria, dismissing him. We must catch up later, darling. I have so many questions about the merger. She glided away and Victoria's jaw was tight. I'm sorry. For what? For her. For this whole thing. For dragging you into... Hey! Ethan turned her to face him. I knew what I was signing up for. Insufferable small talk, remember? You warned me. That was particularly insufferable. Then let me handle it. That's what I'm here for. Victoria looked at him like he'd said something revolutionary. You really meant that? About handling the small talk? I really did. Point me at the next terrible person and watch me work. The night proceeded in waves of champagne and conversation, and Victoria's hand never far from his. Ethan met donors and board members and society wives, and he fielded their invasive questions with a politeness that bordered on aggressive. Where did he meet Victoria? Through mutual friends. What did he think of her work? That she was brilliant and underappreciated. Did he know about the upcoming merger? He knew Victoria would handle it brilliantly, as she handled everything. After an hour, Victoria pulled him aside. You're too good at this. At what? Defending me without making it obvious that's what you're doing. Every time someone gets condescending, you redirect. Every time they try to put me in a box, you remind them I'm more than that. That's just the truth. Most people don't bother. Then most people are idiots. Victoria laughed, and several heads turned. Ethan realized it might have been the first genuine laugh she'd allowed herself all evening. Dinner was announced, and they found their assigned seats, Victoria at the main table, Ethan beside her. The place cards were hand-calligraphed. The centerpieces were elaborate floral arrangements, and the man across from them spent 20 minutes explaining his yacht's specifications. Fascinating, Ethan said, when the man finally paused for breath. And here I thought boats just floated. Victoria kicked him under the table. He kicked back gently, and her eyes danced. The speeches started after dessert. Impassioned pleas for donations, heartbreaking stories of children helped by the Foundation's research. Ethan watched Victoria's face soften as a mother spoke about her daughter's recovery, saw her wipe her eyes discreetly when a young survivor took the stage. When the pledge portion began, Victoria leaned over. I'm going to donate. It's expected. How much? 500,000. Ethan nearly choked on his water. Jesus. Is that wrong? Should I? No, that's incredible. I can't wrap my head around having that kind of money to give away. It's not giving it away, Victoria said quietly. It's using it for something that matters. What's the point of having resources if you don't help people who need them? And there it was again, the woman underneath the billion-dollar exterior. The one who rescued broken animals and cried at children's stories and wanted desperately to make a difference. "You're remarkable," Ethan said. Victoria's hand found his under the table. "So are you." After the speeches, people began to mingle again, and Ethan saw Victoria's energy flagging. She was still smiling, still engaging, but there was a tightness around her eyes that hadn't been there earlier. "You want to get out of here?" he asked. "We haven't made it through the networking hour." "Screw the networking hour. You're exhausted. I can't just leave. People expect you to work yourself to death for their approval," Ethan said. "What do you expect from yourself?" Victoria stared at him. Then, decisively, she stood. "Let's go." They made their excuses. Early morning meetings, prior commitments, and escaped into the cool night air. The car was waiting and they collapsed into the back seat like survivors of a natural disaster. "That was awful," Victoria said. "That was excruciating. You were amazing. You were better." They looked at each other and burst out laughing, the kind of slightly hysterical laughter that comes from relief and exhaustion and the absurdity of it all. "I can't believe you told Harrison Breckenridge that insurance claims processing was the backbone of civil society," Victoria said between laughs. "He was being condescending. Someone had to knock him down a peg." "He looked like he'd swallowed a lemon." "Good. He was an ass." Victoria sobered slightly, her hand finding his again. "Thank you. For coming. For staying. For making it bearable. Anytime. I mean it. I've been to hundreds of these events, and tonight was the first time I didn't feel completely alone." Her voice cracked. "You have no idea what that means to me." Ethan squeezed her hand. "Same here." They drove in comfortable silence back to Victoria's house. The animals greeted them at the door, Hank barking joyfully, Scout bouncing on 3 legs, Luna observing regally from her perch on a cat tree. "Do you want to come in?" Victoria asked. "I could make tea, or we could just talk, if you don't have to get back to Emma." Ethan checked his phone. A text from Marcus. "Emma's asleep. Take your time." "Tea sounds good," he said. They shed their formal wear, Victoria disappearing and returning in jeans and a soft sweater, Ethan rolling up his sleeves and loosening his tie. The kitchen was warm and lived in, nothing like the sterile showcases he'd expected. There were coffee rings on the counter, a stack of rescue organization newsletters, a calendar covered in vet appointments. Victoria made tea while Ethan sat at the kitchen island, Luna curled in his lap. It felt surreal. This strange, perfect domesticity in a house that probably cost more than he'd earn in a lifetime. "Tell me about Emma," Victoria said, setting a mug in front of him. "What's she like? Really like?" So Ethan told her about Emma's fierce intelligence, her tendency to correct adults when they got facts wrong, her collection of smooth rocks she called her thinking stones, about how she still slept with the stuffed elephant Sarah had given her the day she was born, about her fear of thunderstorms and her complete lack of fear when it came to speaking her mind. "She sounds extraordinary," Victoria said. "She is. She's better than anything I deserve." "Stop doing that." "Doing what?" "Acting like you're not worthy of good things." Victoria's voice was fierce. "You're raising an incredible child. You survived grief that would have broken most people. You showed up tonight to a world completely foreign to you and handled it with grace and humor. You're everything, Ethan. Why can't you see that?" He didn't have an answer, so instead he said, "Why can't you see it about yourself?" Victoria blinked. "What?" "You act like you have to justify your existence by how much you accomplish. Like being human isn't enough. Like just being you, messy and complicated and caring too much about broken things, isn't worthy of love. That's different. It's exactly the same." They stared at each other across the kitchen island, both seeing too clearly the wounds they carried. "We're a mess," Victoria said finally. "Yeah. This probably won't work. Probably not. But we're trying anyway?" "Yeah," Ethan said. "We're trying anyway." Victoria came around the island and kissed him, soft and tentative and terrified. Ethan kissed her back, tasting tea and hope and the possibility of something neither of them knew how to name. When they broke apart, Luna was purring between them, a small, insistent reminder that trust was possible, even after being broken. "Stay a little longer?" Victoria asked. "Okay." They moved to the living room, surrounded by sleeping dogs and watchful cats, and talked until the sky started to lighten outside the windows, about their fears, their failures, the ways they'd learned to survive, about Emma and the animals, and the strange, terrifying beauty of trying again. And when Ethan finally left as dawn broke, driving home through empty streets with the taste of Victoria's kiss still on his lips, he thought, maybe this is what healing looks like. Not perfect, not easy. Just two broken people choosing to be broken together and hoping that's enough. Emma was waiting on the front steps when Ethan pulled into the driveway at 7 in the morning, still wearing her pajamas, her hair sticking up in every direction. She had that look on her face, the one that meant she had questions and wouldn't be satisfied with vague answers. "You stayed out all night," she said as soon as he opened the car door. "Good morning to you too." "Dad, you stayed out all night at Victoria's house." Ethan closed the car door, suddenly exhausted. "We talked, lost track of time. Nothing happened, Em." "I didn't ask if something happened." Emma crossed her arms. "But you like her. Like really like her." "Yeah, I really like her." "Good." Emma stood and brushed off her pajama bottoms. "Because she's coming over today and I need to clean my room." Ethan's brain stuttered. "What?" "Victoria texted me last night." "Well, she texted you, but you weren't answering, so I answered from your phone." "She said she wanted to meet me and asked what I wanted to do today. I said she should come here for lunch and meet my rock collection. She said yes. So she's coming at noon." Emma paused. "You're not mad, right?" What?" "I used proper grammar and everything, and I told her you were probably busy talking to her in person, so that's why you couldn't text back. Was I wrong?" Ethan stared at his daughter, torn between pride and panic. "No, you weren't wrong. But, Em, you can't invite people over without asking me first." "Why not? You invited her to that fancy party." "I can invite her to lunch." "That's different." "How?" "Because I'm terrified of you two meeting and one of you deciding I'm not worth the complication. Because if you don't like her or she doesn't like you, this whole fragile thing falls apart. Because I'm not ready for my two worlds to collide." "It just is," Ethan said weakly. Emma looked at him with those two knowing eyes. "You're scared." "I'm not." "You are. You're scared I won't like her or she won't like me. But Dad, I already like her. She rescues animals and she makes you smile. That's enough for me." "It's not that simple, sweetheart." "Yes, it is. You're the one making it complicated." Emma headed for the door, then turned back. "Oh, and she's bringing Luna. I said Luna could meet my rock collection too. Cats like rocks, right?" Before Ethan could answer, she disappeared inside, leaving him standing in the driveway wondering when his 8-year-old had taken control of his entire life. He texted Victoria as soon as he got inside. "So apparently you're coming for lunch?" Her reply was immediate. "I'm so sorry." "Emma texted from your phone and I thought, should I cancel? I don't want to overstep." "No, don't cancel. I want you to come. I'm just..." "Terrified?" "Yeah, me too." "What if she hates me?" "She won't. She's already decided you're perfect because you rescue animals. No pressure then." "Exactly. See you at noon? I'll bring lunch." "What is Emma like?" Ethan smiled despite his nerves. "Everything except mushrooms. She says they're morally suspicious. I like her already." The next 4 hours were a blur of cleaning, panicking, and trying to make the house look less like a single father's survival bunker, and more like a home where normal people lived. Emma helped mostly by pointing out everything that was wrong. "The couch cushions are lumpy." "They've been lumpy for 3 years, Em." "But Victoria's rich. She probably has perfect cushions. She also has 17 rescue animals. I doubt she cares about lumpy cushions." "Still," Emma punched a cushion aggressively, "we should try." By 11:30, the house was as presentable as it was going to get. Emma had changed into her favorite dress, the one with dinosaurs on it that she insisted was fancy but educational. And Ethan had swapped his wrinkled shirt for a cleaner one. They both stood in the living room surveying their work. "Do we look desperate?" Emma asked. "Probably." "Good. Honesty is important in relationships." "Where did you learn that?" "Documentary about penguins. They're very honest with each other." "Of course they are." A car pulled up outside and Emma bolted to the window. "She's here! Dad, she's here and she brought Luna and, oh my gosh, there's another dog in the car. Ethan's stomach flipped. He walked to the door on legs that felt unsteady, Emma bouncing beside him. Victoria was climbing out of her car. A different one this time, a practical SUV instead of the town car, wearing jeans and a simple blue sweater. She looked nervous, clutching Luna's carrier in one hand and a bag of food in the other. A small brown dog with floppy ears followed her out, staying close to her legs. "Hi," Victoria said when Ethan opened the door. Her voice was tight with anxiety. "Hi." He wanted to kiss her, but with Emma watching and the weight of this moment pressing down, he settled for a smile. "You brought reinforcements?" "This is Pepper. She's a Cocker Spaniel mix. I adopted her 2 weeks ago, and she has separation anxiety. I couldn't leave her home alone." Victoria looked mortified. "I should have asked. I'm sorry. I can take her back." "No way!" Emma pushed past Ethan. "She's perfect. Hi, I'm Emma. Can I pet her?" "Of course, she's very gentle." Emma dropped to her knees, and Pepper immediately crawled into her lap, tail wagging frantically. The sound that came out of Emma was pure joy. "Dad, can we keep her?" "She's not ours to keep, Em." "But we could get one just like her, right? Right?" Victoria laughed, the tension in her shoulders easing slightly. "There are always dogs that need homes. I could help you find one, if your dad agrees." Emma looked up at Ethan with devastating hope in her eyes. He knew he was beaten before he even opened his mouth. "We'll talk about it." "That's not a no," Emma whispered to Pepper. "That's basically a yes." Victoria and Ethan's eyes met over Emma's head, and something warm passed between them. This was happening. His daughter and this woman were in the same space, and the world hadn't ended. "Come in," Ethan said. "Please." They moved inside, Pepper trotting beside Emma like they'd known each other for years. Victoria set Luna's carrier down carefully and opened it. The gray tabby emerged slowly, sniffing the unfamiliar space. "Your home is lovely," Victoria said, and Ethan could tell she meant it. There was no condescension, no comparison to her own palace in the hills. Just genuine appreciation. "It's small," Ethan said. "It's lived in. That's better." Emma was already giving Pepper a tour, pointing out the couch where she read, the window where birds visited, the corner where her rock collection lived. Victoria followed, listening intently, asking questions that Emma answered with increasing enthusiasm. "This one's granite. I found it by the river. And this one's quartzite. You can tell by the way it catches the light. And this one I'm not sure about, but I think it might be schist." "You know your geology," Victoria said, genuinely impressed. "I know everything. Dad says I'm insufferable about it." "I said you're enthusiastic," Ethan corrected. "Same thing." Emma held up a smooth black stone. "This one's my favorite. It's from the beach where Mom took me before the accident. I keep it in my pocket sometimes when I'm sad." The room went quiet. Victoria knelt down so she was eye level with Emma. "That's a beautiful way to remember her. Do you have anything like that? Something that reminds you of someone?" Victoria reached into her pocket and pulled out a small silver compass. "My father gave me this the day I took over his company. He said I'd need it to find my way when things got confusing. He died 3 months later." Emma studied the compass carefully. "Do you use it?" "Every day. It doesn't actually point north anymore. It broke years ago. But it still reminds me that he believed I could do hard things." "That's sad and nice at the same time." "Yeah," Victoria said softly. "It really is." Emma handed her the black stone. "You can hold it if you want. It helps." Victoria's eyes went bright with tears. She took the stone, closed her fingers around it, and took a shaky breath. "Thank you, Emma." "You're welcome. Do you want to see my room? I have a poster of the deep-sea food chain. It's very accurate. I would love that." They disappeared down the hallway, Pepper bouncing after them, and Ethan stood in the living room feeling like his heart might burst. Luna wound around his ankles, purring, and he picked her up carefully. "Your human's pretty great," he told the cat. "In case you were wondering." Luna headbutted his chin in what he chose to interpret as agreement. 10 minutes later, Victoria and Emma returned, deep in conversation about bioluminescent organisms. Emma was gesturing wildly, explaining the difference between bioluminescence and biofluorescence, while Victoria listened like it was the most fascinating lecture she'd ever attended. Dad, did you know that some jellyfish can live forever? Like actually forever. They can reverse their aging process. I did not know that. It's called the Turritopsis dohrnii, the immortal jellyfish. Isn't that amazing? Very amazing. Ethan looked at Victoria. I brought lunch. Should we eat before Emma teaches you the entire encyclopedia? Please do, Emma said. I'm starving, and I have 17 more facts about jellyfish. They ate at the small kitchen table, sandwiches from a deli Victoria loved, chips, fruit, simple and perfect. Emma monopolized most of the conversation, but neither adult minded. She asked Victoria about the animals, about her work, about whether she'd ever petted a whale. I haven't, Victoria admitted, but I've always wanted to. Me too. Dad says we can't afford to go whale watching, but maybe someday. Maybe sooner than you think, Victoria said, glancing at Ethan. I know someone who runs marine tours. I could make a call. Really? Emma's eyes went huge. Really? If your dad says it's okay. Emma turned to Ethan with a look that could have melted steel. Please? He couldn't have said no if he'd wanted to. Okay. Emma shrieked and launched herself at Victoria in a hug that nearly knocked over her water glass. Victoria caught her, surprised, then hugged back fiercely. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Emma chanted. You're welcome, sweetheart. When Emma pulled back, she looked between Victoria and Ethan with a seriousness that belied her age. You're going to keep dating my dad, right? Emma, Ethan started. I want to, Victoria said honestly. If he'll have me. He will. He's terrible at dating, but he really likes you. He smiled at his phone for like 20 minutes yesterday. Em, that's enough. It's true, though. Emma turned back to Victoria. Just so you know, he's kind of a mess. He forgets to eat lunch sometimes, and he has nightmares about Mom, and he won't throw away her coffee mug even though it's chipped. But he's also the best dad in the world, and he deserves to be happy. So don't hurt him, okay? The kitchen was silent. Victoria's eyes were swimming with tears. Okay, she whispered. I'll do my best not to. Good. Emma nodded, satisfied. Can Pepper and I go play in the backyard? Sure, baby, Ethan managed. Stay where I can see you. Emma grabbed a ball and headed outside, Pepper following enthusiastically. Through the window, they could see her throwing the ball and laughing when Pepper brought back a stick instead. I'm sorry, Ethan said. She's perfect, Victoria finished. She's absolutely perfect and terrifying. When did 8-year-olds get so perceptive? She's always been like that. Too smart for her own good. He paused. She's right, though. I am kind of a mess. So am I. Victoria reached across the table and took his hand. She's protecting you. I respect that. She likes you, I can tell. The feeling's mutual. Ethan, she's extraordinary. You've done an incredible job with her. I've done my best. Most days I feel like I'm faking it. That's called parenting. My father used to say the same thing. They sat in comfortable silence, watching Emma play through the window. Luna had ventured onto the table and was investigating the sandwich remnants. Victoria scratched behind her ears absently. I was terrified this morning, Victoria admitted. I changed outfits 4 times. I almost canceled 3 times. I kept thinking, what if she hates me? What if I say the wrong thing? What if I ruin this? You didn't ruin anything. You were perfect. I wasn't perfect. I brought an extra dog without asking. I cried in front of your daughter, and I just offered to take you whale watching without checking if you're even interested in whales. I love whales, and Emma's going to talk about nothing else for the next 6 months, so thank you for that. Victoria smiled. You're welcome. Emma appeared at the back door, Pepper in her arms. Dad, can Victoria stay for dinner, please? Ethan looked at Victoria. She looked back, hope and uncertainty written across her face. I'd like that, he said. If you don't have other plans. I don't. I mean, I have a conference call at 4, but I could take it from here if that's okay. And then stay after? That's more than okay. Emma whooped and disappeared back outside. Victoria laughed, shaking her head. I'm being absorbed into your life very quickly. Is that a bad thing? No, it's just I've never done this before. Dated someone with a child. Integrated into someone else's world. Usually I'm the one people try to integrate into. How's it feel? Victoria considered this, watching Emma through the window. Like coming home, she said finally. Which is terrifying because I barely know you. I barely know Emma. But sitting in your kitchen, watching your daughter play with my dog, it feels more real than anything in my life has felt in years. Ethan squeezed her hand. I know the feeling. The afternoon unfolded in a way that felt both surreal and completely natural. Victoria took her conference call from the living room while Emma showed Ethan her new drawings, detailed sketches of deep-sea creatures that were actually quite good. They could hear Victoria's voice through the door, calm and authoritative, handling whatever crisis had required her attention. She's really smart, Emma whispered. Very smart. And she's pretty. Very pretty. And she likes you even though you're kind of awkward. Thanks, Em, really, Emma grinned. I'm just saying, you should probably marry her before she realizes she could do better. I've known her for 2 weeks. So? When you know, you know. That's what Mom used to say. The mention of Sarah caught him off guard, as it always did. Emma noticed. Is it weird, she asked quietly, that I like Victoria? Is that being mean to Mom? Ethan pulled her close. No, baby, it's not mean at all. Mom would want us to be happy. She'd want us to find people who make life better. Do you think Mom would like Victoria? I think they would have gotten along great. They're both stubborn, smart, and impossible to argue with. Emma giggled. You have a type. Apparently I do. Victoria emerged from the living room looking frazzled. I'm so sorry. That took longer than expected. There's an issue with one of our suppliers in Taiwan, and she stopped, seeing their faces. What? Did I miss something? Nothing, Ethan said. How's the crisis? Managed. For now. She ran a hand through her hair, dislodging the neat style she'd arrived with. This is why I don't usually try to take time off. Something always explodes. Do you need to go back? Ethan asked, trying to keep the disappointment out of his voice. No, I delegated. That's what I'm supposed to do, right? Trust my team to handle things? She didn't sound convinced. Emma stood. Victoria, do you know how to make cookies? What? Cookies. The kind you bake. Do you know how? I've never actually made cookies from scratch, Victoria admitted. Perfect. We're making cookies. Dad has a recipe from Mom. It's really good but kind of hard. You can help. Before Victoria could protest, Emma had grabbed her hand and was pulling her toward the kitchen. Ethan followed, amused and touched. Sarah's chocolate chip cookie recipe was legendary in their house. Complicated, finicky, and absolutely worth the effort. Em, maybe Victoria doesn't want to. I want to, Victoria said quickly. If that's okay. I'd like to learn. So they made cookies. Or tried to. Emma read the recipe aloud while Victoria measured ingredients with a precision that suggested she approached baking the way she approached board meetings. Seriously and with full attention. Ethan supervised, offering tips and trying not to laugh when Victoria asked if cream the butter meant literally turning it into cream. It means mix it until it's fluffy, he explained. Why don't they just say that? Because baking is designed to make people feel stupid, Emma said sagely. Mom always said that. Victoria laughed, and the sound filled the kitchen with warmth. They mixed and measured, Emma narrating the entire process like a nature documentary, Victoria asking questions and actually listening to the answers. Pepper and Luna supervised from their respective perches, and for a moment, Ethan could almost pretend this was his life, this easy, comfortable domesticity with someone who fit. The first batch came out slightly burned because they were too busy talking to watch the timer. The second batch was perfect. Emma insisted they eat one immediately, consequences to dinner be damned, and they stood around the cooling rack eating warm cookies like it was a normal Sunday afternoon. These are incredible, Victoria said through a mouthful of chocolate chips. Emma, you're a genius. I know, but it's nice to hear it. Ethan's phone rang. Marcus. He excused himself and answered in the hallway. How's it going? Marcus asked without preamble. She's in my kitchen making cookies with my daughter. Holy shit. Yeah. And? How's it going? Marcus, it's going really well, too well. I keep waiting for something to go wrong. Maybe nothing will go wrong. Maybe this is just what it looks like when things go right. I don't know how to do that. How to accept that this might actually work. Then learn, Marcus said simply. You've spent 3 years preparing for the worst. Maybe it's time to prepare for the best.
bo pieśmieci bo przaci.
When Ethan returned to the kitchen, he found Victoria and Emma frosting cookies, or attempting to. Most of the frosting was ending up on their fingers, which they were eating with guilty expressions. "We're quality testing," Emma explained. "Uh-huh. It's very important. We can't serve subpar cookies." "Of course not." They ate dinner at the same small table, leftover spaghetti that Ethan had made the night before, cookies for dessert, comfortable conversation about everything and nothing. Victoria told them about a parrot at her house named Gerald, who hated everyone except the one-eyed cat. Emma told Victoria about her friend Marcus Jr., Marcus's nephew, who Emma insisted was her best friend despite them fighting constantly. Ethan watched them, this impossible pairing, and felt something in his chest loosen. After dinner, Emma yawned dramatically. "I'm exhausted from all this cookie making." "Nice try," Ethan said. "Bedtime's not for another hour." "But I'm so tired." Emma looked at Victoria. "Will you read me a story?" Victoria glanced at Ethan, uncertain. He nodded. "I'd love to," Victoria said. They moved to Emma's room. Victoria, Emma, and both animals forming a small parade. Ethan cleaned up the kitchen, listening to Victoria's voice through the walls as she read from Emma's current favorite book about a girl who could talk to ocean creatures. When the story ended, he heard Emma's voice, quieter now. "Victoria, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Are you going to leave? Like, eventually? Because if you are, I'd rather know now, before Dad gets too attached." Ethan froze in the doorway. "I don't want to leave," Victoria said carefully. "But I can't promise I won't mess this up. I'm not very good at relationships, Emma. I work too much. I get stressed and shut down. Sometimes I forget to call when I should. I'm kind of a disaster at this." "That's okay. Dad's kind of a disaster too. You can be disasters together." Victoria laughed, but it sounded wet. "You're very wise for 8. "I know. It's a burden." "Emma, I promise I'll try my best. And if I do mess up, when I mess up, I'll be honest about it. I won't just disappear, okay?" "Okay." A pause. "I'm glad Dad found you. I'm glad I found both of you." Ethan stepped back into the kitchen before they could catch him eavesdropping. When Victoria emerged a few minutes later, her eyes were red. "She's asleep," Victoria said. "Pepper's on her bed. I hope that's okay." "It's fine. She's probably already planning how to convince me we need a dog. I'll help her strategize if you want." "Traitor," Victoria smiled, but it faded quickly. "Ethan, what she asked? About leaving. I meant what I said. I'm going to mess this up at some point. I'm going to work late and forget to call. I'm going to have panic attacks and shut down. I'm going to—" He crossed the distance between them and kissed her, gentle and certain. When he pulled back, she was crying. "I'm going to mess up too," Ethan said. "I'm going to have days where I can't get out of bed because the grief is too heavy. I'm going to compare you to Sarah, even though that's not fair. I'm going to be overprotective of Emma and probably smother you with my own anxiety. We're both disasters, Victoria, but maybe that's okay. Maybe we can be disasters together." Emma said the same thing. "She's a smart kid." Victoria laughed through her tears. "She really is, and she's terrifying. I've negotiated with Fortune 500 CEOs, and none of them scared me as much as your 8-year-old daughter. She has that effect on people." They stood in the kitchen, holding each other while the house settled into evening quiet. Through the window, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. "I should probably go," Victoria said, but she didn't move. "You could stay, on the couch, if you want. I have an early meeting. So leave early." Victoria pulled back to look at him. "You really want me to stay?" "Yeah, I really do." So she stayed. They moved to the couch with mugs of tea. Luna curled between them and talked until midnight about their weeks, their fears, their hopes for this strange thing growing between them. Victoria told him about the panic attack she'd had the night before the fundraiser, sitting on her bathroom floor counting tiles and wishing she had someone to call. Ethan told her about the nightmares that still woke him most nights, the ones where he couldn't save Sarah no matter how fast he ran. "Next time," Victoria said, "call me when you wake up. I'll be awake anyway." "Deal. And next time you're counting tiles, call me. I'm usually awake too." "We're quite a pair." "Yeah," Ethan agreed. "We really are." Victoria left at 1 in the morning, reluctant and exhausted. Ethan walked her to her car, Pepper following sleepily. "Thank you for today," Victoria said, "for letting me into your life, into Emma's life. It means more than you know. Thank you for wanting to be here." They kissed goodbye under the streetlights, and Ethan watched her drive away until her taillights disappeared around the corner. When he went back inside, he found Emma standing in the hallway in her pajamas. "I thought you were asleep." "I was, but I wanted to make sure Victoria left okay." Emma studied his face. "You're happy." "I am." "Good. You deserve to be happy, Dad." She padded back to her room, then turned. "She's good for you, both of you. You're good for each other. When did you become a relationship expert?" "I've always been an expert. You just didn't listen." Ethan laughed and scooped her up, carrying her back to bed despite her protests that she was too old for that. He tucked her in, kissed her forehead, and turned off the light. "Dad?" Emma's voice came from the darkness. "Yeah, baby?" "I think Mom would really like her. Victoria, I think they would have been friends." Ethan's throat closed. "Yeah, Em, I think so too." He left her room and stood in the hallway, letting the weight of the day settle over him. His daughter approved. Victoria had integrated into their small life with surprising ease. The impossible was starting to feel possible. His phone buzzed. "Victoria, I'm home." "Luna's asking where Pepper went. I think she actually enjoyed today. Emma's asking if we can get a dog." "I think you're a bad influence." "Guilty. But seriously, thank you for today, for trusting me with Emma. She's incredible. She thinks you're pretty great too. Even after I burned the first batch of cookies, especially after that, showed you're human. I am decidedly human, flawed and messy, and already missing you both. Same here. Sleep well, Victoria. You too. And Ethan, I'm all in. Just so you know, whatever this is, wherever it goes, I'm in." Ethan stared at the message for a long moment, his heart doing complicated things in his chest. Then he typed, "Me too, completely." He went to bed that night and slept without nightmares for the first time in 3 years. His phone on the nightstand in case Victoria needed to count tiles or he needed to hear her voice. They were learning, both of them, how to let someone in, how to trust despite every reason not to, how to believe that maybe, just maybe, broken things could heal if you gave them enough care and patience and love. Outside, the city hummed on, full of possibility and second chances and the quiet courage it took to try again. The nightmare came 3 weeks later, on a Tuesday night when everything had been going too well. Ethan jerked awake at 2:17 in the morning, his heart slamming against his ribs, Sarah's screams still echoing in his ears. In the dream, he'd been there in the intersection, watching the drunk driver's car plow into hers, unable to move, unable to save her. He'd had variations of this nightmare hundreds of times, but tonight it felt worse. Tonight he'd been holding Victoria's hand when it happened, and he'd had to choose, run to Sarah or stay with Victoria. In the dream, he'd frozen, choosing neither, losing both. His hands were shaking. His chest felt like someone had wrapped steel bands around it. He grabbed his phone, saw Victoria's name, and hesitated. It was 2 in the morning. She had an investor presentation at 8. She needed sleep, but she'd said to call. "Next time you wake up, call me." He pressed her name before he could talk himself out of it. She answered on the second ring, voice thick with sleep. "Ethan? I'm sorry, I shouldn't have... Are you okay?" She was alert now, concern cutting through the grogginess. "Nightmare. Bad one. I needed to hear your voice." "I'm here. I'm right here." He heard rustling, like she was sitting up. "Tell me about it." So he did. Told her about the intersection, the choice, the paralysis. Told her about the guilt that came after, the feeling that by moving forward with her, he was somehow betraying Sarah's memory. "That's not how love works," Victoria said softly when he finished. "Loving me doesn't diminish what you had with Sarah. Your heart doesn't have a finite capacity, Ethan. It expands." "I know that. Logically, I know that. But at 2 in the morning, logic doesn't mean much." "No, it doesn't." A pause. "Do you want me to come over?" "It's the middle of the night. You have that presentation." "I don't care about the presentation. Do you want me there?" Ethan closed his eyes. "Yeah, I really do." Give me 20 minutes. She hung up before he could protest. Ethan sat in the dark, trying to calm his breathing, trying to push past the shame of needing her this much this fast. They'd been dating for 3 weeks. 3 weeks wasn't long enough to make middle-of-the-night emergency calls. 3 weeks wasn't long enough to need someone this desperately. But apparently his heart hadn't gotten the memo. Victoria arrived in 18 minutes, wearing sweatpants and an old college t-shirt, her hair messy, no makeup, carrying a bag that Luna's face peeked out of. She looked nothing like the polished billionaire from the fundraiser and everything like someone who'd dropped everything to be here. "Hi," she said when Ethan opened the door. "Hi, you brought Luna. She doesn't sleep well without me, and I thought maybe having her here might help." Ethan pulled her inside and kissed her, desperate and grateful. Victoria kissed back, then pulled away and studied his face. "You look terrible." "Thanks." "I mean it. When's the last time you slept through a night?" "I don't know. Before Sarah died, probably." Victoria's expression crumpled. "Oh, Ethan. Don't feel sorry for me. I'm managing." "Managing isn't living." She set Luna's carrier down and took his hand. "Come on." "Where are we going?" "Your bedroom. You're going to try to sleep, and I'm going to stay with you until you do." "Victoria, you don't have to." "I know I don't have to. I want to." She looked at him with those fierce, determined eyes. "Let me be here for you. Please." So they went to his bedroom, the one he still slept on only one side of, the one with Sarah's book still on the nightstand. Victoria didn't comment on any of it. She just climbed into bed, pulled him down beside her, and wrapped her arms around him. "Tell me something," she said into the darkness. "Something about Sarah. Something good." Ethan went rigid. "What?" "You don't talk about her. Not really. You mention the accident, the grief, but never who she was. I think maybe that's part of what's haunting you. You're afraid if you talk about her, you'll lose her completely. I don't know if I can. Try. Just one thing." Ethan was quiet for a long time, feeling Victoria's warmth against him, Luna's purring from the foot of the bed. Finally, he spoke. She snorted when she laughed. Really laughed, I mean. She was embarrassed by it, tried to cover it up, but I loved it. It meant the laughter was real, uncontrolled. The first time I heard it, we were on our 3rd date, and I just told the stupidest joke. She snorted, turned bright red, and I knew I was going to marry her. Victoria's arms tightened around him. "She sounds wonderful." She was. She was stubborn and brilliant, and she never let me get away with my bullshit. When Emma was born, Sarah was terrified. She kept saying she didn't know how to be a mother. What if she screwed it up? I told her she was already a better parent than most people because she cared enough to worry. His voice cracked. She would have been proud of Emma, of who she's becoming. She would be proud of you too, for keeping going, for raising Emma alone, for letting yourself try again. I'm not sure about that. I am. Victoria shifted so she could see his face in the dim light from the window. Ethan, loving me doesn't mean you stopped loving her. It just means your heart is big enough for both. That's what you said on the phone. Because it's true. And I need you to believe it because I can't. I can't compete with a ghost. I can't be Sarah. I don't want to be Sarah. I just want to be someone who makes your life better, not replace someone who made it whole. Ethan cupped her face, brushing away tears he hadn't realized were falling. You do. You make it better. You and Emma, sometimes I watch you two together and I think this is what moving forward looks like. Not forgetting, not replacing, just adding something new. Then let me stay, not just tonight. Really stay. What are you saying? Victoria took a shaky breath. I'm saying I'm falling in love with you. I'm saying I want to be part of your life, part of Emma's life. I'm saying I know it's fast and probably crazy, but I've never felt this certain about anything that wasn't a business decision. Ethan's heart stuttered. You're falling in love with me? Yes. Is that okay? He kissed her instead of answering, deep and slow and full of everything he couldn't say out loud yet. When they broke apart, they were both breathing hard. I'm terrified, he admitted, of losing you, of screwing this up, of being happy and having it ripped away again. Me too. I'm terrified you'll wake up one day and realize I'm too much work, too complicated, Too broken. You're not broken, you're just human. So are you. They lay there in the dark, holding each other, and eventually Ethan felt his breathing even out, the panic receding. He didn't fall asleep, not yet, but for the first time since the nightmare, he felt like he could. "Thank you," he whispered, "for coming, for being here." "Always," Victoria said. "Any time you need me. 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, doesn't matter. You call, I come." That's a pretty big promise. I know. I mean it anyway. Ethan finally slept around 4, Victoria's heartbeat steady beneath his ear, Luna curled against his back. When he woke at 6:30, Victoria was already up, sitting at his kitchen table with her laptop, talking quietly into her phone. She'd changed into clothes from her bag, a business suit that looked absurdly formal in his small kitchen, and was explaining something about market projections to whoever was on the other end. "Yes, I understand the risk, but the potential return outweighs it. Move forward with the acquisition." She paused, listening. "Because I said so, Richard. That's why. I'll be in the office by 9. Have the contracts ready." She hung up and looked at Ethan. "Good morning." "Morning. You're very bossy when you're being a CEO." "I'm very bossy all the time. You just haven't noticed yet." She stood and poured him coffee. Somehow she'd figured out where everything was. "How are you feeling?" "Better." "Embarrassed." "Don't be." "I called you at 2 in the morning because I had a nightmare. That's exactly what you should do." "Ethan, I meant what I said. You need me. You call. I don't care what time it is or what I'm doing." She handed him the coffee. "I have to leave in 10 minutes, but I wanted to make sure you were okay first. You stayed all night and you're still making your presentation?" "Of course. Why wouldn't I?" "Most people would have canceled, used it as an excuse to rest." Victoria smiled. "I'm not most people." "No," Ethan agreed. "You're really not." Emma appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. "Victoria, why are you here?" "Your dad had a rough night. I came to help." Emma looked between them, understanding dawning. "Did you have the nightmare? The one about Mom?" Ethan nodded, not trusting his voice. Emma crossed to him and hugged him hard. "It's okay, Dad. She's not really mad at you." "What?" "In your nightmare. Mom's not mad that you're happy with Victoria. I know that's what you're scared of, but she's not. She would want this." Ethan looked at his daughter, at her serious 8-year-old face, and felt something break open in his chest. "When did you get so wise?" "I've always been wise. No one listens." Victoria laughed, watery and surprised. "She's right, you know, about your wife, about all of it." "How would you know?" "Because if I died and left someone I love behind, I'd want them to find happiness again. I'd want them to live, not just survive." She checked her watch. "I really have to go. But I'll call you after the presentation?" "Okay." She kissed him goodbye, ruffled Emma's hair, and was gone in a whirlwind of expensive perfume and determination. Ethan and Emma stood in the kitchen, listening to her car pull away. "I like her," Emma said. "I know you do." "No, Dad. I really like her. Like, I think you should marry her like." "Em, we've been dating 3 weeks." "So? You said you knew you were going to marry Mom on the 3rd date. What's the difference?" Ethan didn't have an answer for that. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of integrating their lives. Victoria started spending more nights at Ethan's house than her own, bringing Luna and sometimes Pepper, filling the small space with her presence. She learned Emma's schedule, started attending her school events, helped with homework even though calculus made her irrationally angry. Ethan started keeping his opinions on Hale Industries' quarterly reports, which Victoria would spread across his coffee table at night, stress-eating cookies while she strategized. It wasn't perfect. Victoria worked too much, often taking calls during dinner, her mind clearly elsewhere even when her body was present. Ethan struggled with sharing space, with letting go of routines he'd built as armor against grief. They argued about small things, where to order takeout from, whether Emma should be allowed to watch a documentary about sharks that included footage of attacks, how much coffee was too much coffee. But they were learning each other. The fights never lasted long, usually ending with one of them apologizing and both of them laughing at how stupid the argument had been. And the good moments, those were starting to outweigh the hard ones. Like the night Victoria came home from a brutal 14-hour day and found Emma crying over a failed math test. Instead of offering empty reassurance, Victoria sat down and said, "Okay, let's figure out where you went wrong and make sure it doesn't happen again." They spent 2 hours working through problems until Emma understood. And when Emma finally got one right, Victoria's whoop of joy woke up every animal in the house. Or the Saturday morning, Ethan woke to find Victoria in his kitchen, attempting to make pancakes from scratch, flour coating every surface, including her face. "I wanted to surprise you," she'd said sheepishly. "Turns out I'm terrible at pancakes." They'd ended up ordering breakfast instead, but Ethan had kept a picture of her flour-covered face on his phone. Or the afternoon Emma had asked Victoria very seriously, "If you and Dad get married, would that make you my mom?" And Victoria had teared up and said, "I could never replace your mom, sweetheart, but I could be someone else who loves you completely, if you'd let me." Emma had thought about this, then said, "Okay, but you have to promise to come to my school stuff and learn about ocean creatures even when they're boring." Deal. They were building something, the three of them. Something that felt fragile and precious and terrifyingly real. Then Victoria's ex-husband called. It was a Wednesday evening. Victoria had been sitting on Ethan's couch, laptop balanced on her knees, reviewing contracts. Her phone rang, she glanced at the screen, and her entire body went rigid. "I need to take this," she said, her voice strange. She stepped outside, closing the door behind her. Through the window, Ethan could see her pacing, one hand pressed to her forehead, her expression anguished. The call lasted 15 minutes. When she came back inside, she looked shattered. "What's wrong?" Ethan asked. "That was James, my ex-husband." Victoria sat down heavily. "He wants to meet. Says he has something important to discuss about the company." "What could he possibly have to discuss? You divorced him 3 years ago." 4 years. And he still owns 5% of Hale Industries. My father gave it to him when we got married." Her voice was bitter. "I've been trying to buy him out ever since the divorce, but he keeps refusing, says it's his insurance policy." "Insurance against what?" "Against me forgetting he exists." Victoria rubbed her eyes. "James and it was a disaster. We married too young. I was 23, fresh out of business school, desperate to prove I could handle my father's company. James was charming, ambitious, and exactly the kind of person my father thought I should marry. Someone from the right family with the right connections. What happened? I outgrew him. Or maybe I just finally saw him clearly. He wanted to be married to Victoria Hale, CEO. He didn't want to be married to me. Messy, anxious, obsessed with rescuing animals me. When I started bringing home strays, he gave me an ultimatum. The animals or him. You chose the animals. I chose myself. The animals were just the catalyst." She looked at Ethan. "He made me feel small, like my worth was tied entirely to my last name and my bank account. When I left him, he told me I'd never find anyone who could handle my complications, that I was too much work for any normal person." Ethan felt anger burn hot in his chest. "He's an idiot." "Maybe, but he's an idiot who owns 5% of my company and wants to meet tomorrow." She took a shaky breath. "I don't want to see him, but I can't ignore him either. He could make things very difficult if he wanted to." "Do you want me to come with you?" Victoria's head snapped up. "What?" "To the meeting. Do you want me there?" "Ethan, you don't have to." "I know I don't have to. I'm asking if you want me there." She stared at him, something vulnerable and hopeful breaking through her anxiety. "Yes, but it won't be pleasant. James he's vindictive when he wants to be. He'll say things designed to hurt me. Then I'll be there to remind you they're not true." Victoria crossed the room and kissed him, desperate and grateful. "I don't deserve you." "Yeah, you do. Stop saying you don't." The meeting was scheduled for noon at a downtown restaurant, neutral territory. Ethan took a half day off work, put on his one good suit, and met Victoria outside the building. She was already there, standing on the sidewalk, looking like she was preparing for battle. "You okay?" he asked. "No, but I will be." And she took his hand. "Thank you for being here. Nowhere else I'd be." James Whitmore was exactly what Ethan had expected. Expensive suit, perfect hair, the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. He was already seated when they arrived, and his eyebrows rose when he saw Ethan. Victoria, you brought a guest. This is Ethan Cole. Ethan, James Whitmore. Ethan shook James's hand, noting the assessing look, the subtle condescension. Nice to meet you. Likewise. Victoria's never mentioned you. We haven't exactly been in touch, Victoria said coldly. What do you want, James? James leaned back in his chair, completely at ease. Straight to business. I'd forgotten how much you hate small talk. I hate wasting time. You said this was important. It is. I'm selling my shares. Victoria went very still. What? My 5%. I'm ready to sell, but I wanted to offer them to you first, professional courtesy. How much? 50 million. Ethan nearly choked on his water. Victoria didn't even blink. They're worth 30 million, maybe. To anyone else, sure. But to you? To get me out of your life completely? I'd say that's worth the premium. James smiled that empty smile again. Unless you'd rather I sell to one of your competitors. I've had several offers. Victoria's jaw tightened. You're blackmailing me. I'm offering you an opportunity. Take it or leave it. I need time to think. You have 48 hours. After that, the offer goes to the highest bidder. James stood. It was good to see you, Victoria. You look well. Happier than I've seen you in years. I am happier. Good. You deserve it. He glanced at Ethan. Take care of her. She's more fragile than she pretends to be. After James left, Victoria sat frozen, staring at nothing. Ethan touched her hand gently. Victoria? $50 million, she said quietly, to be free of him completely. Can you afford it? Barely. It would gut my liquid assets. I'd have to restructure debt, possibly sell some properties. She laughed bitterly. He knows exactly what he's doing, forcing me to choose between my financial stability and my peace of mind. What do you want to do? I want to tell him to go to hell, but if he sells to a competitor, they could make my life a nightmare. Use their board position to block initiatives, leak confidential information, sabotage partnerships. She rubbed her temples. I'm trapped. No, you're not. You're strategic. There's a difference. Victoria looked at him. What would you do? Me? I'd tell him to shove his 50 million where the sun doesn't shine, but I'm not a CEO. I don't think like you do. Maybe that's a good thing. She was quiet for a moment. I need to call my lawyers, run the numbers, figure out if this is even possible. Okay? But Victoria, whatever you decide, I support you. 50 million or nothing. Your call. She squeezed his hand. Thank you for being here, for not telling me what to do. I wouldn't dream of it. You're terrifying when you're in CEO mode. That got a small smile. I'll take that as a compliment. They spent the rest of the day in Victoria's office, her real office, at Hale Industries headquarters, a sprawling space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Ethan sat in a corner while Victoria assembled her team, firing off questions, demanding projections, analyzing scenarios. He watched her transform from the woman who made cookies with his daughter to the billionaire who commanded boardrooms, and he was awed by both versions. Around 6, Victoria's assistant brought dinner. Around 8, the lawyers left with their marching orders. Around 10, Victoria finally collapsed in her chair, exhausted. I can do it, she said. Barely, but I can do it. Should you? I don't know. 50 million is obscene, it's extortion. But Ethan, the thought of being completely free of him, of never having to worry about what damage he could do, that might be worth it. Then do it. Just like that? Just like that. You've run the numbers. You've analyzed the risk. Trust your gut. Victoria closed her eyes. My gut says buy him out and be done with it. Then that's your answer. She opened her eyes and looked at him. You make it sound so simple. It is simple. Not easy, but simple. Victoria stood and crossed to him, settling into his lap like she belonged there. I love you. The words hung in the air between them. Ethan's heart stopped. What? I love you. I've been trying not to say it because it's too soon and probably insane, but I love you. I love the way you make me feel like I'm enough exactly as I am. I love the way you support me without trying to control me. I love watching you with Emma, the way you're gentle and patient and completely devoted. I love that you showed up today without question, sat in my office for 6 hours without complaint, and trusted me to make my own decision. I love you, Ethan Cole. Ethan cupped her face, memorizing this moment, her confession, her vulnerability, the hope in her eyes. I love you too. I've been trying not to say it either, but I do. I love you completely. They kissed, deep and slow and full of promise. When they broke apart, Victoria was crying. I'm buying him out, she said. Tomorrow, I'm calling James and telling him yes. Because I want to be free to build a future without him hanging over me. I want to build that future with you. Are you sure? I'm sure. The next morning, Victoria called James and agreed to his terms. By the end of the week, the contracts were signed, the money transferred, and James Whitmore was officially out of her life. It cost her $50 million and a significant portion of her financial cushion, but the relief on her face was worth every penny. How do you feel? Ethan asked that Friday night as they sat on his couch with Emma between them, watching a documentary about octopuses. Lighter, Victoria said. Broke, but lighter. You're not broke. You're still a billionaire. Barely. My accountant had a small breakdown when I told him what I'd done. But you're happy? Victoria looked at him, then at Emma, who was completely absorbed in the documentary. Yeah, I'm happy. Emma paused the video. Can we talk about something? Course, baby, Ethan said. Are you guys getting married? Victoria choked on her wine. Ethan froze. Because if you are, I think you should do it soon, before you both get too scared and talk yourselves out of it. Emma, Ethan started. I'm serious. You love each other. Anyone can see it. And Dad, you're happier than I've ever seen you. And Victoria, you smile now. Like really smile, so just do it already. Victoria was staring at Emma like she'd just solved a complicated equation. You want us to get married? Duh, but only if you want to. Don't do it just because I said so. Do it because you can't imagine not doing it. Ethan and Victoria looked at each other. 1,000 unspoken conversations passed between them in that look. Can we talk about this? Ethan asked quietly. Now? Now? They moved to the kitchen, leaving Emma with her octopuses. Ethan paced while Victoria leaned against the counter, arms crossed. She's 8, Ethan said. She doesn't understand how complicated this is. Does she need to? Maybe it's only complicated because we're making it complicated. Victoria, we've been together a month, 1 month. People don't get married after 1 month. Some people do. My parents got engaged after 6 weeks. They were married for 30 years. And my parents were married for 20 years and made each other miserable for most of it. Time isn't a guarantee. No, it's not. But Ethan, I know this is right. I know you're right. I've never been more certain of anything in my life. You were certain about James once. The words came out harsher than he'd intended. Victoria flinched. That's not fair. I know. I'm sorry. I'm scared, Victoria. I'm scared of moving too fast and screwing this up. I'm scared of hurting you or Emma. I'm scared of being happy and losing it again. So you want to wait? Be careful? Take our time? Don't you? Victoria was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was steady. No, I don't. I've spent my whole life being careful, playing it safe, doing what was expected. And I've been miserable. But with you and Emma, I'm not miserable. I'm terrified, yes, but I'm also alive, really alive. And I don't want to waste time being careful when I could be building a life with you. Ethan stared at her. You're serious? Completely. Ethan, I'm not asking you to marry me tomorrow. I'm just saying, I know where this is going. I know what I want. And what I want is you, both of you, for as long as you'll have me. That's basically a proposal. Is it working? Ethan laughed, surprised and overwhelmed. You're insane. Probably, but you love me anyway. Yeah, he said softly. I really do. They stood in his small kitchen, the weight of the conversation settling around them. From the living room, they could hear Emma's documentary playing, the narrator explaining the intelligence of octopuses in dramatic tones. I'm not ready to get married tomorrow, Ethan said finally. I need time. Not because I don't love you, not because I have doubts, but because I need to make sure Emma and I are both ready for that step. That's fair, but I am ready to talk about a future, a real future, together. Victoria smiled, and it transformed her face. Yeah? Yeah. He pulled her close. You're stuck with us now. Hope you know what you're getting into. Messy, complicated, sometimes disaster-prone. I know exactly what I'm getting into, and I can't wait. They kissed, and Ethan felt something settle in his chest. Not certainty, he wasn't sure he'd ever feel completely certain about anything again, but possibility. Hope. The sense that maybe, just maybe, he was allowed to have this, allowed to be happy without guilt, to love without fear, to build something new without abandoning what came before. When they returned to the living room, Emma looked up with a knowing smile. Did you figure it out? We're working on it, Ethan said. Good. Because I already told my friend Zoe that Victoria was going to be my bonus mom. So don't make me a liar. Bonus mom? Victoria asked, her voice thick. Yeah, you're not my real mom. That's mom, but you're an extra mom. A bonus. Is that okay? Victoria sat down beside Emma and pulled her into a hug. That's more than okay. That's perfect. Ethan watched them, his heart so full it ached, and thought about Sarah, about what she'd want for him, for Emma. And he knew with absolute certainty that she'd approve. Not because Victoria was replacing her, but because Victoria was helping them heal, helping them live again. That night, after Emma went to bed, Ethan and Victoria lay on the couch in comfortable silence, Luna curled between them. The city lights twinkled through the window, and somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed. I meant what I said, Victoria murmured, about wanting a future with you. I know, I meant it too. Even though I'm broke now and emotionally unstable? You're not broke. You just made a $50 million investment in your own peace of mind. That's smart, not unstable. My accountant disagrees. Your accountant doesn't know you like I do. Victoria turned to look at him. And how well do you know me, Ethan Cole? Well enough to know you stress-eat cookies when you're anxious. Well enough to know you rescue broken things because you see yourself in them. Well enough to know you count bathroom tiles during panic attacks and pretend you're fine when you're falling apart. Well enough to know you're terrified of being too much for people, so you make yourself small even though you're extraordinary. He kissed her gently. And I'm still learning. But I plan to spend a very long time continuing that education. Victoria's eyes were bright with tears. That might be the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me. Stick around. I've got more where that came from. Promise? Promise. They fell asleep there on the couch, wrapped around each other, Luna purring between them. And for the first time in 4 years, Ethan didn't dream of intersections and choices and loss. He dreamed of the future, messy and uncertain and absolutely worth fighting for. The proposal happened on a Thursday afternoon in March, 6 months after their first date, in the least romantic place imaginable. Ethan was elbow-deep in a broken garbage disposal, swearing creatively while Victoria held a flashlight and tried not to laugh. Emma sat at the kitchen table doing homework, occasionally offering unhelpful suggestions like, maybe it's possessed and have you tried asking it nicely to work? This is disgusting, Ethan muttered, pulling out what looked like a petrified lemon rind. I told you not to put citrus peels down there, Victoria said. You put citrus peels down there. That was one time. This is clearly accumulated neglect. Accumulated. I've lived here for 8 years and it's never broken before you moved in. Are you blaming me for your garbage disposal? I'm saying it's suspicious timing. Victoria laughed, and the sound filled the kitchen with warmth. She'd been living with them for 2 months now, officially. Most of her animals had come with her. The house was chaotic with dogs and cats, and Emma had never been happier. Victoria had kept her place in the hills, using it mostly for storage and the occasional weekend retreat when she needed absolute quiet. But this cramped house had become home. It wasn't always easy. Victoria still worked brutal hours, often taking calls during dinner or disappearing into the spare bedroom-turned office for emergency meetings. Ethan still had nightmares, though less frequently now, and there were mornings he woke up disoriented, expecting to find Sarah beside him instead of Victoria. Emma had moments where she missed having her father's undivided attention, and she wasn't always subtle about it. But they were learning to communicate, to compromise, to exist in each other's spaces without losing themselves. Learning that love wasn't about perfection. It was about showing up, day after day, even when it was hard. Got it, Ethan said triumphantly, extracting a mangled bottle cap. This was the culprit. How did a bottle cap get in there? Emma? I plead the fifth, Emma said without looking up from her math homework. Ethan cleaned up, washed his hands, and was drying them when he looked at Victoria. Really looked at her. She was wearing old jeans and one of his t-shirts, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, no makeup, holding a flashlight like it was a sacred duty. She belonged here, in his kitchen, in his life, in every moment of his chaotic, imperfect existence. Marry me, he said. Victoria froze. What? Marry me. I know we said we'd wait. I know we were going to talk about it more, plan it better, but I don't want to wait. I want you here, permanently, legally, in every way that matters. Marry me. Emma's head snapped up. Oh my gosh, is this happening? Dad, are you serious? Very serious. Ethan never broke eye contact with Victoria. I don't have a ring. I'm covered in garbage disposal gunk. This is probably the worst proposal in history. But I love you, Victoria Hale. I love the way you fix things instead of running from them. I love the way you love Emma like she's yours. I love that you made our small life bigger just by being in it. So yes, marry me. Victoria's hand had gone to her mouth. Tears streamed down her face. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. But the house is too small for all of us and the animals, and I travel constantly for work. And we fight about stupid things like citrus peels and whether octopuses are actually intelligent. They are intelligent, Emma interjected. That's not even debatable. And I'm difficult, Victoria continued, her voice cracking. I have panic attacks and control issues, and I spent $50 million out of spite. You spent $50 million on freedom, Ethan corrected. And yes, you're difficult. So am I. So is Emma. We're all disasters, but we're disasters together, and that works. So what do you say? Victoria crossed the kitchen in 3 steps and kissed him, hard and desperate and full of yes. When she pulled back, she was laughing and crying simultaneously. Yes, yes, I'll marry you. In this garbage disposal kitchen with no ring and terrible timing, yes. Emma screamed and launched herself at them, and they caught her in a 3-way hug that knocked over the flashlight and sent Luna skittering for cover. Pepper barked enthusiastically from her bed in the corner, and somewhere in the house, one of the cats yowled in response. Can I be the flower girl? Emma asked. You can be whatever you want, Victoria said, still clinging to Ethan like she was afraid he might disappear. Can we get a bigger house, with a yard for the dogs? We'll figure it out, Ethan promised. Can we do it soon? Like really soon? Because I've already told everyone at school you're getting married, and I don't want to be a liar. Victoria laughed, watery and bright. How soon is soon? Next month? Emma? Ethan started. What? You just proposed in the kitchen. Clearly, you're not worried about traditional timing. She had a point. Ethan looked at Victoria. What do you think? I think... Victoria wiped her eyes. I think I don't want a big wedding. I don't want photographers and society pages and my board members analyzing my dress. I just want us. And Emma. And maybe Marcus and a few close friends. That sounds perfect. My assistant is going to have a breakdown. Your assistant has breakdowns weekly. She'll survive. They planned it in secret over the next 3 weeks, telling only the people who absolutely needed to know. Marcus, who served as both best man and voice of reason. Victoria's assistant Jennifer, who did indeed have a breakdown but rallied magnificently. Emma, who took her role as wedding coordinator so seriously that she created a binder with color-coded tabs. The flowers need to be ocean-themed, Emma announced one evening, consulting her notes. Because you met because of Luna, and Luna is gray like the ocean, and also I like ocean things. That logic is flawless, Victoria said, managing to keep a straight face. I know. Also, the cake should have layers, at least 3, possibly 5. Why 5? Because I'm 8, and I think 5 sounds fancy. They kept the guest list small. Marcus and his nephew, Victoria's assistant, and her wife, a few colleagues from Ethan's office who'd become friends over the years, the vet who'd saved Luna's life. No press, no society photographers, no fanfare. The ceremony was scheduled for a Saturday afternoon at the small park where they'd had their first real conversation, the one with the bench and the fountain. The weather forecast predicted rain, but neither of them cared. The night before the wedding, Victoria had a panic attack. Ethan found her in the bathroom at 2 in the morning, sitting on the floor in her pajamas, breathing too fast, counting tiles. He didn't say anything, just sat down beside her and took her hand. 147, Victoria gasped out. In my bathroom at home, here it's only 73. I keep losing count. That's okay. Start over. I can't breathe right. Ethan, what if I'm making a mistake? What if I'm not good at this? What if I fail you and Emma? You won't. You don't know that. My track record isn't great. James isn't you. Victoria, look at me. He waited until her eyes met his. You are not going to fail us. You show up every day. You love Emma fiercely. You've integrated into our chaos without trying to fix us. You're already succeeding. But what if it's not enough? What if I wake up one day and realize I can't do this, the stepmom thing, the wife thing, all of it? Then we figure it out together. That's what marriage is, not perfection, not certainty, just two people choosing each other over and over, even when it's hard. Victoria's breathing was slowing. 73 tiles. 73 tiles. You got it. I'm terrified. Me too. I'm terrified I'll let you down. That I'll compare you to Sarah without meaning to. That my grief will poison what we're building. Does it poison things? Sometimes. But you're patient with me. You let me have my bad days without making them about you. That's everything, Victoria. She leaned against him, exhausted. I love you so much it scares me. Good. Love should be a little scary. Means it matters. They sat on the bathroom floor until Victoria's breathing returned to normal, until the panic receded and left only exhaustion in its wake. Ethan carried her to bed. She protested weakly that she could walk, and held her until she fell asleep. The wedding day dawned gray and drizzly, exactly as predicted. Emma woke them at 6, already dressed in her flower girl dress, deep blue with embroidered waves, bouncing with excitement. It's wedding day! Dad, you're getting married! Victoria, you're marrying my dad! This is the best day ever! It's 6 in the morning, Em, Ethan groaned. So? Important things happen early. The sun rises early. Birds wake up early. Weddings should too. Victoria laughed into her pillow. She makes a compelling argument. They got ready in a controlled chaos of animals and nerves, and Emma's running commentary on everything. Victoria's dress was simple, cream-colored, knee-length, elegant without being ostentatious. Ethan wore the same suit from the fundraiser, properly tailored this time. Emma had insisted on doing Victoria's hair, and somehow, miraculously, it looked beautiful. You're really good at this, Victoria said, watching Emma work in the mirror. I practiced on my dolls and YouTube videos, and that one time on Pepper, but she didn't like it. I can't imagine why. Marcus arrived at 11 to pick up Ethan, giving Victoria space to finish getting ready. In the car, he looked at his best friend with something like awe. You're really doing this, Marcus said. I really am. No doubts? Terrified, but no doubts. Sarah would be proud of you, man, for taking this chance, for letting yourself be happy again. Ethan's throat tightened. I hope so. I know so. She loved you too much to want you stuck in grief forever. The park was decorated simply. White chairs, small flower arrangements, an arch covered in blue and white flowers that Emma had definitely had a hand in designing. The rain had slowed to a light mist, making everything soft and dreamlike. The guests were already seated when Ethan arrived. Not many, maybe 20 people total, but everyone who mattered. His coworkers cheered when they saw him. Marcus's nephew gave him a thumbs up. The vet who'd saved Luna was crying already, which made Ethan smile. Then Victoria appeared at the end of the makeshift aisle, Emma beside her carrying a basket of flower petals, and Ethan forgot how to breathe. She was beautiful. Not magazine cover beautiful or red carpet beautiful, just herself. Real and present and choosing him. Choosing this life. Emma walked first, scattering petals with dramatic flair, waving at guests like she was in a parade. Then Victoria, walking alone because she'd insisted she didn't need anyone to give her away. She belonged to herself. She was choosing this freely. When she reached Ethan, her eyes were bright with tears. Hi. Hi yourself. You look terrified? Perfect. The ceremony was short. They'd written their own vows, and Ethan went first, his hands shaking as he pulled out the folded paper he'd written and rewritten a dozen times. Victoria, 6 months ago, I walked into a restaurant expecting another polite disaster. Instead, I found you, complicated, brilliant, carrying a rescue cat and more baggage than any sane person would admit to on a first date. The guest laughed. You didn't run when I told you about Sarah. You didn't flinch when you met Emma. You didn't try to fix me or change me. You just stayed. You showed me that moving forward doesn't mean forgetting, that loving again doesn't diminish what came before. You taught Emma that family can expand, that there's room in our hearts for more love, not less. You make our small life extraordinary just by being in it. So I promise you this. I will show up, even when it's hard, even when I'm scared. I will choose you every day for as long as you'll have me. Victoria was crying openly now. She pulled out her own paper, hands trembling. Ethan, I've spent most of my life trying to be perfect. Perfect daughter, perfect CEO, perfect wife to someone who didn't deserve it. And I failed over and over because perfection isn't real. Then I met you, a widower with a precocious daughter and no interest in my money or my company. You saw me, the messy, anxious, animal-hoarding me. And you didn't ask me to be less. You asked me to be more honest, more present, more myself. You and Emma gave me a family when I'd given up on having one. You gave me a home that isn't measured in square footage or property value, but in laughter and arguments over garbage disposals and cookies made from a recipe that belongs to someone who will always be part of this family. I promise I will love Emma like she's mine, while honoring that she had a mother who loved her first. I promise to work less and be present more. I promise to count tiles with you at 2 in the morning. I promise to try, to fail, to get back up and try again. Because you're worth it. This, us, is worth everything. There wasn't a dry eye in the park. Even Marcus was wiping his face. The officiant, a retired judge Victoria knew from charity work, smiled. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you married. You may kiss. Ethan pulled Victoria close and kissed her, soft and sweet and full of promise. Their guests erupted in cheers. Emma whooped loudly enough to startle several birds from a nearby tree. When they broke apart, Victoria laughed through her tears. We did it. We really did. Emma pushed between them, demanding a group hug. They obliged, and in that moment, surrounded by the people they loved in a misty park with imperfect flowers, and a ceremony that had lasted all of 12 minutes, Ethan felt something he hadn't felt in 4 years. Complete. The reception was at a small restaurant, not the one where they'd first met, but a family-owned Italian place that Emma loved. No formal dinner, no speeches, just food and conversation, and Emma dragging Victoria onto the small dance floor while a jazz trio played. I don't really know how to dance, Victoria admitted. Neither do I. We'll figure it out. They swayed together, offbeat and laughing, while Emma provided instructions that mostly consisted of spin more and you're doing it wrong, but it's fine. Ethan watched them, his wife and his daughter, and felt Marcus appear beside him. You good? Marcus asked. Yeah, really good. No grief, no guilt? Some. Always some. But also joy, also hope. I think maybe that's okay. To hold both. Sarah would agree. Yeah, she would. Later, when the guests had filtered out and Emma had crashed hard in one of the restaurant's booths, curled up with her head on Victoria's lap, Ethan and Victoria stood outside in the mist. So, Victoria said, we're married. Legally and everything. How do you feel? Terrified. Happy. Confused about why we didn't do this sooner. Victoria laughed. We did it pretty fast, all things considered. Yeah, but I knew, that first night in the park, I knew you were it. Even though I brought a cat to a restaurant? Especially because you brought a cat to a restaurant. He pulled her close. Thank you for taking a chance on us, on this weird, complicated life. Thank you for making space for me in it. They stood there, 2 broken people who'd found each other in the aftermath of their separate disasters and chose to build something new. Not perfect, not easy, but real and worth fighting for. Over the next few months, they merged their lives more fully, sold Ethan's small house and Victoria's empty mansion, bought something in between, Big enough for the animals and Emma's growing rock collection, small enough to still feel like a home. Victoria cut back her hours at work, delegated more, learned to say no to things that didn't matter. Ethan started therapy, working through his grief with a professional instead of just managing it alone. Emma thrived, secure in the knowledge that she was loved by multiple people in multiple ways. It wasn't always smooth. There were arguments about money, Victoria's instinct to solve problems by throwing cash at them versus Ethan's more frugal approach. There were disagreements about parenting, Victoria's tendency to be permissive versus Ethan's stricter boundaries. There were days when the grief hit Ethan so hard he couldn't function, and Victoria had to navigate being supportive while not taking it personally. But they worked through it. Every fight ended with conversation, with compromise, with the conscious choice to stay and work rather than run and hide. They learned each other's patterns, each other's triggers, each other's love languages. Emma learned too. Learned that having a stepmother didn't mean betraying her mother's memory. Learned that love could expand to include new people without diminishing what came before. Learned that families could be built, not just born into. On the 1-year anniversary of their first date, they returned to the park. Same bench, same fountain. Luna had passed away peacefully 2 months earlier, old age finally claiming her, but they brought Pepper and the new kitten Emma had insisted on rescuing from the shelter. "Do you remember what you said to me that first night?" Victoria asked, "when we left the restaurant. I asked if you wanted to get out of there. And I said yes, best decision I ever made." "Second best," Ethan corrected. "The first was bringing Luna to that restaurant." "Fair point. Without her, we might have had one polite dinner and never seen each other again. Instead, we got this." Ethan gestured to the park, to Emma throwing a ball for Pepper, to their life stretching out ahead of them. Not perfect, not easy, but ours. I wouldn't change a thing. Not even the garbage disposal incident? Especially not the garbage disposal incident. You proposed. That makes it sacred. They sat on their bench, watching Emma play, and Ethan thought about how far they'd come. From 2 lonely, broken people to this, a family, imperfect and real. He thought about Sarah, about how she'd want this for him, for Emma, how she'd probably like Victoria, appreciate her fierce protectiveness and terrible cooking and absolute refusal to give up on the people she loved. "What are you thinking about?" Victoria asked. "That I'm grateful for you, for this second chance, for Emma having you in her life. I'm grateful too, for all of it." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "Even the hard parts, especially the hard parts. They taught us we could survive anything. Together. Together." Emma ran over, breathless and happy. "Can we get ice cream?" "It's 40 degrees outside," Ethan said. "So?" "Ice cream doesn't have a temperature requirement." Victoria laughed. "She makes a valid point. You're a terrible influence on my daughter." "Our daughter, and yes, I absolutely am." They left the park together, husband, wife, daughter, dog, and kitten, and walked to the ice cream shop Emma loved. It was absurd to eat ice cream in March, but they did it anyway, sitting at a small table while Emma explained her latest obsession with marine biology, and Victoria listened like it was the most important lecture she'd ever attended. Ethan watched them and felt something settle in his chest. Not the absence of grief, that would probably always be there, a low hum beneath everything, but alongside it, something stronger. Joy, love, hope. The knowledge that he'd survived the worst thing that could happen to him and come out the other side able to love again. That night, after Emma was asleep and the house was quiet, Ethan and Victoria lay in bed talking about nothing and everything, their plans for the weekend. Emma's upcoming science fair. The new rescue dog Victoria was considering adopting despite Ethan's protests that they had enough animals. "We always have room for one more," Victoria argued. "We really don't. The house is already chaos." "Exactly. One more won't make a difference." "That's terrible logic." "And yet you'll agree because you love me and you're soft when it comes to rescue animals." She was right. Ethan sighed. "Fine. But you're explaining to Emma why we have 4 dogs." "She'll be thrilled. You know she will." They lapsed into comfortable silence, and Ethan felt Victoria's hand find his in the darkness. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" "For not walking away that first night. for seeing past the money and the complications, for giving me this family, this life. I never thought I'd have this. Me neither. After Sarah, I thought that was it. One great love and then just survival. I never imagined there could be more. Do you still feel guilty about being happy? Sometimes. Less than before, though. I think Sarah would want this for us. For Emma to have someone else who loves her completely. For me to have a partner who makes life better instead of just bearable. I hope I do. Make life better. You do. Every day. Even when you're driving me crazy with your inability to put dishes in the dishwasher. I put them near the dishwasher. That should count. It really doesn't. Victoria laughed, and the sound filled their bedroom with warmth. I love you, Ethan Cole. I love you too, Victoria Cole. He still got a thrill from saying her new name, from the fact that she'd chosen to take it despite her assistant's protests about brand recognition and professional identity. They fell asleep, tangled together, and Ethan dreamed of the future. Of Emma graduating high school, Victoria beside him cheering. Of anniversaries and arguments and making up. Of growing old together, accumulating more rescue animals and memories and inside jokes. Of a life built not on perfection, but on showing up, on choosing each other, on believing that broken things could heal if given enough love and patience. The next morning, Emma woke them at 6 again, announcing that she'd decided what her science fair project would be. The emotional intelligence of rescue animals, she declared. Specifically, how they learn to trust again after trauma. Victoria and Ethan exchanged looks. That's ambitious, Ethan said carefully. I know, but I have the perfect test subjects. Emma gestured broadly. All are animals, and I have the perfect hypothesis that animals who are loved consistently learn to trust faster than animals who aren't. And how exactly are you planning to test this? Victoria asked. Observation, documentation. I'll track their behaviors over 6 weeks. Dad, you're good at spreadsheets. Can you help? And Victoria, you know about rescue animal psychology. Can you be my consultant? You want us to help you with your science fair project? Ethan asked. Obviously, it's going to be the best project in the entire 3rd grade, possibly the entire school. We might win awards. Victoria pulled Emma onto the bed between them. Okay, we'll help, but you're doing the actual work. We're just support. Deal. Emma snuggled between them, completely content. This is the best family ever. Ethan's throat tightened. He looked at Victoria over Emma's head, saw his own emotion reflected in her eyes. Yeah, kiddo, he said softly. It really is. And there, in that ordinary moment on an ordinary Sunday morning, with rescue animals wandering through the house and Emma already planning her award acceptance speech, Ethan understood something fundamental. Love wasn't about finding someone perfect. It wasn't about erasing the past or pretending pain didn't exist. It was about finding someone willing to sit with you in the mess, to hold your hand through the hard parts, to choose you over and over even when it wasn't easy. Victoria had done that for him. He'd done that for her. And together, they were teaching Emma that this was what love looked like. Imperfect, complicated, sometimes difficult, but always worth fighting for. The sun broke through the clouds outside their window, casting light across the bed where the 3 of them lay. Somewhere in the house, a dog barked. A cat meowed in response. The chaos of their life continued around them. And Ethan Cole, widower turned husband, father turned family man, felt something he'd thought he'd lost forever. Peace. Not the absence of pain or fear or doubt, but the presence of something stronger, love, in all its messy, complicated, absolutely beautiful forms. They'd found each other in the wreckage of their separate disasters. They'd chosen to try despite every reason not to, and they'd built something real, something lasting, something that proved that second chances were possible if you were brave enough to take them. It wasn't a fairy tale. There was no perfect ending, because life didn't work that way. There would be more arguments about garbage disposals and citrus peels, more nightmares and panic attacks and moments of doubt, more challenges as Emma grew up, and their family continued to evolve. But there would also be more mornings like this. More laughter and inside jokes and quiet moments of connection, more rescue animals and science fair projects and ice cream in March. More choosing each other, over and over, building a life worth living. And that, Ethan thought as he held his family close, was more than enough. It was everything.